That's how. What an intro! What an intro!
It's pretty great.
What is that? Welcome to another episode of What is Adam Vaping?
What? There you go. Did you hear that?
Oh, God.
Tobacco.
Yeah,
That's
the
great.
echo.
Okay, yeah, we're up and running. Welcome to a live
It's happening.
episode of Just One Song. Another one. This time it was successful, and the other one didn't load. Because why would it? Why would anything work? I'm just kidding. It's working.
Technology.
Tonight we have. Was that Leo? I can't hear you. Could you turn
I
yourself
think it
up
was.
some?
It was Leo. Yeah. That's it. That's as loud as it goes. I need
Really?
to get up in this. How's that? Yeah.
That's perfect.
That's better.
Yeah, I must sound a little
Okay,
bit
I'm
I'm just
echoey
gonna talk
myself.
directly into it.
We're getting there. How about
We have a
Pop
great
filter.
night. We have a
we have
pop
Dr.
music,
Jessie
pop filter. We have a
Vallejo
wonderful evening.
from Cal Poly Pomona. She is the instructor, one of the esteemed music professors. All of my peers from Cal Poly Pomona hold her in great esteem. I have yet to meet someone who has not enjoyed any of your classes. And I think Leo, Adam, and I think our first year there was your first year there.
Yeah,
So we're part of your inaugural class.
yeah. I feel like we were the Breakfast Club, which was my favorite. So,
It was early enough.
It was.
8 a.m.
A nice.
And I'm not an early person, so
No, there's not much you can learn out of one bloodshot eye. Just
I
having
tried to make it fun. So we all enjoyed 8 a.m. together. So
we did had a nice cold
We were
glass
miserable
of
together.
kumis.
Mm.
We had an
That was my
opportunity
first,
to make that happen.
yeah,
To make kumis.
Yeah, I mean, we
made
went
you
to a
kumis.
horse. We went to the horse school.
Oh yeah,
Which
and they did
brewery?
have like a brewery and fermented. Yeah, but they're brewing for like the brew bros. They're not brewing the good stuff.
Not for research.
You know, not for research purposes.
Should have been.
That was my first college experience outside. Well, apart from community college, like that was my very first time in like a university, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is 8 a.m. This is how it is. But it was a great class, great professor, and eye opening. And we're glad to have you here, Dr.
yeah,
V.
Thank you so much for being available. So you just got back from Texas. What city were you in?
I was in Dallas.
Okay. And you saw the eclipse?
Oh, I did. I made sure I did. So
That's awesome. What was that the only reason you were in Texas for? I ended
Yes.
that on the preposition.
That's okay. I feel like colloquially, when we're speaking, that's common. But if you write it in your paper, then I would judge you.
As you should.
So yeah. So I was trying to figure out where I would go for the eclipse because it also passed through my hometown in Syracuse, and when I was invited to Southern Methodist University to give some talks there, they gave me some choices for dates. So I figured Dallas sometimes probably is not as gloomy as Syracuse. So I decided to go to Dallas at that time. And then I'll go home to see my family in a couple weeks in New York. So yeah, it was great.
What were you talking about at Southern Methodist University?
Yeah, I gave a few guest lectures. I talked about like approaches to teaching mariachi for pedagogy students. They have a really great music ed program at SMU. So a couple of their classes, their choral methods class, and then their like second year or like sophomore music ed students who are just going out to like observe classes and things, wanting to know more about, well, how could you teach mariachi? How are we teaching mariachi? And then I also gave a talk for a Latin American music seminar, and then their equivalent of World of Music. So it was a
Wow.
busy 2 days.
That's awesome. You're
Is
making
there a lot?
Please, Leo. You have a question? I had a comment.
Oh no,
Leo. Leo, please.
my question was just on like that. I feel like you're on the cutting edge of like this as being like a collegiate study. Like, do you see that? Do you find that? Like, is that a cat? I thought that was your arm. There was we have the cameras on, folks. So Oh my god.
They can see my
It
glasses.
was just a cat,
Yeah,
but it looked
that's
like
a cat.
Adam made sure that to let us know that it was a Vietnamese cat too, because that's where you got the cat.
Yep. Adopted
Yeah.
her.
Oh,
Oh, that's great. Pet adoption. We need to get a pet adoption plug.
yes.
Anyway,
See how we stay on topic so easily?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I have an adopted
Free host.
pit bull boxer mix, and she's wonderful. So, yeah. But yeah. So cutting edge of mariachi in colleges, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there have been people who've been experimenting with it for a number of years, and in some cases, at least a couple decades in terms of like Texas. Like Texas is its own thing with music education, right? Um, and then I'm trying to figure out how we can make it work at like a teaching oriented school that's not very competition oriented.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
I yeah, I feel like in some ways that gives me some freedom, even though I don't have the like, you know, pipeline or kind of like a program that where you have a team of teachers and like a way to kind of like an established way of recruiting people like bands do and Dr. Badua has, right? I feel like even though I don't have that structure, I have the freedom to kind of reimagine what I would do, right? And so that's what I've been doing in planning, studio lessons and juries and levels for somebody who comes in like with more mariachi experience than anything else.
When did you
Is
begin
there
the
more money in competition schools? Oh my
Oh.
god.
Leo, please? Your question is more relevant. Mine was not a subject changer, but it not on purpose. Leo, please.
Well, I would. You mentioned competition schools, and I was just thinking of was that show where we just watched a show about like cheerleading schools. Like they get so much money for like competing. Not that like music competitions, but maybe there is. Is there more money in?
I mean, there is, but there's also so much more pressure. You basically are working within a sports model, and I love sports, so I'm not the type of person to sit there and say, "Oh, sports don't belong in education." Like I loved playing, sports and being in athletics, but I think that there's a way that I wouldn't want my job hinging on if I win enough competitions or place first at whatever state competition. So I'm really glad I can just kind of have it a little bit more relaxed in terms of job security, and then I can focus on teaching the music the way I'd like to, working on skills that might take a little bit longer to develop. So there would be more money and more fame and all sorts of things involved, but there'd also be a lot more pressure that I'm really happy not to have. So,
It seems very non-sustaining too, and like the meritocracy around competitiveness and music, it like is it's ironic to me because like I got into music because it didn't seem like a meritocracy and like
mhm,
any kind of art form. So like the competitive nature of it, nothing wrong with it, totally
mhm,
fine if you're in a competitive marching band, whatever. But
mhm.
it's cool that you don't have that added pressure of like it just seems not sustainable. Like it
Yeah.
feels like like most people have a stroke when they're like 50 because it's a lot.
I'm not sure if I've heard of any mariachi teachers having that, but I know it's a grind. It's definitely a lot of
Mm.
a lot of things happening. So
So
Would
you
you ever think about bringing it mariachi more into the modern scene? Sorry about that, Kurt.
no, Adam, please, you go.
Well,
The theme of the
since I live
show.
in Vietnam, I get to meet a lot of people from all over the world, and I've been meeting a lot more like Mexican, like the AFA locals,
hmm.
and yeah, they really seem to be taking mariachi music and kind of liking to mix it in with the EDM more. Do you think you could bring
We
like
lost you, Adam.
fusion of that kind of stuff, or oh shoot,
No, you're good. You're back.
do you
Okay.
think you guys more shows or right more
Yeah.
shows and stuff or your concerts with kind of melding things together because that's kind of how music has been in the past, right? We
Yeah, so I would say for fusion, um, let's
Mhm.
see. When I play mariachi music, I feel like it mariachifies anything, right? Like I've played Edelweiss for Schwarzenegger when I played at his home, or I play Bad Moon Rising or something like that, right? So um, I think that mariachi lends itself to sort of blend in with other genres. When I teach it, I try to make sure I teach, this is what mariachi is, but at the same time that we're a school group where we have a lot of room for creativity, right? And so um, we did that collaboration with Julian Saporiti, or he has his doctorate in ethnomusicology too, and his partner Amelia Halverson, and so
The
we released it on Smithsonian Folkways. So that was a fun. It was like a country rock ballad, fusion of all sorts of things. So yeah, I think it's great. You know,
Yeah, I saw the Yamaha article mentioned it, which we need really quick. Dr. Vallejo was you were one of the top 40 educators for 2024.
top 40 under
40 under
40.
40, baby.
40 under
Yeah.
40, awesome. And they mentioned that they brought that up too. It was called the best goddamn band in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that project? I'll read what it said, which I guess is a quote from you, if I can read my own handwriting. Tied together some of the overlapping experiences of Asian, Mexican, and Central American music in the Pomona area.
Chino
Yeah.
Latinos? You say Asian Mexican?
Well, kind of.
Because that's
So
me.
right. Yeah, it's this project where it started with Dr. Saporiti's work, and so he released the album that it's on, 1975, and he released that music video. It's like one of the first singles, and it came out after I moved into Pomona. So right at like January 2020, I decided to move to Pomona, or December 2019. I decided to move to Pomona. I was sick of the commutes. I really like downtown Pomona. Like I know, it has it's rough around the edges in some ways, but I like my neighbors. I like the community. I like that it's artsy. I like that it's like a city that can, and we all hope it can. And um, so I moved here, and I was walking around town listening to that album, early on in the pandemic. So this came out in 2021. And so I couldn't stop listening to that song. And I noticed that in the first verse was a mention of Pomona. And because it was about the Fairplex and when it used to be an assembly center. And so, I was going through all sorts of, you know, feelings, I guess, as we all were during the pandemic, and reflecting on life and our life decisions, and, what could we do to survive or help others during the pandemic. And also at the same time, I was performing at the Fairplex for children, migrant children who were stuck at the border, separated from their families, and then were put into essentially an assembly center again 80 years later. Um, to be reunited with their families, at least, so at least it wasn't as traumatic at the Fairplex. What they went through was probably really awful. So really emotional time. And I think I reflected a lot on music and what it meant to me, and like, should I have studied medicine instead? I almost went to be a scientist. And I reached out to Julian after a while, because I was like, man, I can't stop listening to your song. There's so many overlaps with history, with different ethnic groups, and our experiences in Los Angeles and the Pomona area. Like, can I cover this for the mariachi? Because it works so well as a corrido or like a ranchera, type of thing. So um, he was totally fine with me. He gave me the blessing to like record a song. And then Dr. Mary Danico she was in sociology, but she just moved to Hawaii, and she supported having him come and give a residency and work with the students. And so then we made the recording for the Smithsonian. So it was like 2 years in the making for my involvement in it, and just an absolutely fun project that made me cry sometimes, made me like feel really joyful sometimes. I met new friends out of it, and I hope the students had a really valuable experience recording and meeting him and learning from his work. So yeah.
The journey of that is wild too. And can you talk a little bit more? So you actually perform? Did you perform at these assemblies where kids were separated
Yeah.
from their families?
Yeah, so I performed. The mayor of Pomona, Tim Sandoval, had asked me if I could help get him like a mariachi group together to go perform for the kids, and so he did a bunch of things to help support what you know there were so many people involved in that center, or it was an emergency intake center, technically speaking. So he helped set up like haircuts, and then he wanted entertainment, so we went and played for them for like lunch, and then later the Daw Center, with Margaret Eichel, she also helped coordinate some of the performances. So I performed for them 3 times. Every 2 weeks you had like new kids coming in. Usually it took about 2 weeks for them to get placed with their families or an extended relative, and yeah, it was pretty emotional. You'd see like a bunch of teenagers who are just trying to have fun, and you know, probably were enjoying not processing what they were going through yet, and just like being around other teenagers. And then you saw a lot of like their younger siblings who were with them, who would like cry, and they had no idea what was going on. I just so what when we played for them, it was fun in the sense that they all wanted to be serenaded for their birthday, that type of thing. Like, oh, give me attention, like, and then play like Los Angeles Azules. They love, all the cumbias that were big on the radio around that time. Um, and then, but yeah, I saw a lot of like the little kids just crying, that they probably were so overwhelmed with emotions every day. So, um, yeah, I was really, I've been really like thankful that I witnessed that, because I know so few people get to see what goes on in those situations.
And being able to listen to this, because that's part of the story of like recording a song. Like
Hmm.
people just hear the 3 minutes or 4 minutes of the actual recording, but like that's all part of like the baggage that you brought into that. Not baggage, but like it's part of the context of how that song was created.
Yeah.
um that's amazing. And it's it's poignant and important, but you can't like I guess you being able to discuss how that journey to it being recorded, it means so much more. So like listeners that are listening to this podcast, or me when I listen to that recording, and even for you, that must stir up you know uh the same emotions you had uh when you were there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I cry a lot more easily these days after the pandemic from all of those moments, but yeah, it was so great. And I think like, Julian and I have similar stories of being like mixed heritage, um and growing up in like small town America, but I grew up in the north, he grew up in, Nashville, like south basically, and we have so many similarities, but grew up in such different contexts. He's Vietnamese Italian American, I'm Mexican Italian American. Um, so we had a lot of fun, and we both are like diehard OG Weezer fans. So we really bonded on that trip, and poor Adrian and Amelia had to hear us like sit in the car and talk about Weezer the whole time, and they just
Time
Oh,
well
as one
spent.
should.
Time well spent.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a band that lends itself really well to corridos and mariachi. I feel like you can do a great Buddy Holly with a mariachi band.
Yeah, apparently I just need to do the whole Blue album and
Yeah,
go on tour.
Ooh,
that's what you should
azul.
do
Just
on your
call it azul.
sabbatical.
Yeah.
Yeah, record the entire. That would be gnarly. There's
Yeah.
you were talking about how so much music lends itself to mariachi and corridos. They're really popular on like Instagram and TikTok. They're called the Easy Band
Yes.
with
Oh, yes, yes. I
Yes.
love them.
yeah, they're great. But
They're
like every
awesome.
time, he'll do a cover, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you can do. And then it just reminds me, I was like, oh, music, like you can play this with a in uh, any style really. But yeah, it's just it's fascinating to see how like other people are able to like put it in a completely different genre.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my chair. That wasn't me, I swear. Oh,
I didn't hear
probably can't pick
anything.
it up. Okay, perfect. I shouldn't have said anything. I see. I
You
made it
just
awkward.
told on yourself. That's all you
Ruh-roh.
did. Give me a second. So Adam is like not recording. He's bugging out. So I need to stop the recording real quick. If that's,
Okay.
are you guys okay with that?
Sure.
It's not like we're not like killing it on the stream anyway, which is fine because we get all our views on the back end, and it's Friday night.
Yeah.
I'm being honest. We're the responsible adults not going out and doing things on Friday night. Adam,
Dude, I'm
it's
in my 30s.
Saturday morning for Adam.
That's only
Yeah.
some Fridays for me. Some Fridays I'm out there playing gigs and doing things, and
That's right. We were lucky that you didn't have a gig today.
yeah, last Friday I did, and then I'm pretty sure I got food poisoning from it, so that was great.
Oh, fine.
The Dr. Vallejo.
Dr. Vallejo, can you tell us a little bit about you and why you chose this path for your life? Why'd you do it?
Okay. I would say I always have enjoyed a lot of different subjects. I mean, I was a nerd, and I'm sure that's been painfully obvious in all of my classes. But I I loved. I always wanted to play music. Nobody in my family plays music professionally. Um, I think in my family tree, I found one person who was listed as having a career in music, and they worked for like the royal family in England back in like they died of the plague in like
Whoa.
1605, right? Like I
Whoa.
don't come from a family of musicians. It's the Tinker
But you
family.
did.
Yeah.
You
So
have a career musician. That's
right.
amazing.
A choir clerk. But my grandfather, my Italian grandfather played trumpet, and I never heard him play though. And I also always wanted to travel. I loved doing science fairs. I liked doing storytelling clubs and like the Moth, and yeah, learning languages. And so when I was in high school and I learned about the field of ethnomusicology from a guest conductor, I was like, oh, like sign me up. Like my job can be to just travel, learn languages, learn music. Like how could there be anything better, you know? So the way I could get there is that there aren't really ethnomusicology programs for undergrad, which I didn't understand why at that time. Now I do, and I'm okay with it. I think it's a really I think you want to get a good experience in like music, or music education really prepared me well because I learned how to learn. I went in, and I always loved teaching anyways, so I um, got the music ed degree, taught orchestra for a year, and then applied for grad school. And I had no idea what I was going to do after I graduated. I worked 6 jobs, and I laminated papers, and I organized safety binders for the theaters at UCLA, and I wrote grants for um, LED lights. And so if you go see a show at Schoenberg Theater at UCLA, all the LED lights, I got those. I got them like $300,000 worth of gear. And
Lasting
so,
That was
legacy.
you?
That was you.
yeah,
We were there the other day, Leo and I. You flew all the way down from Tigard. We were like, those LED lights. I'll bet you Dr. Vallejo had something to do with that.
I
oh,
said these things are lit.
Oh,
nice.
and they're green. They're gonna last
For
forever.
Yeah,
our listeners, what was I
yeah.
guess just what is ethnomusicology for the unbaptized, and what made you fall in love with that?
So it's studying people through music, right? People, society, groups of people. Um, and sorry, what was the other part of the question?
And what made you? Why are you such a? I guess you're like an evangelist for ethnomusicology. Like, why do you love it so much?
I just love that you get to explore issues or like examine society through one of the most, I think, enjoyable things that people do.
Hmm.
Music, sometimes our topics can look at things that, I guess, context of where maybe it's not enjoyable. Like I wrote my article on funeral music and playing mariachi for, um, during the COVID pandemic. Um, but I just love thinking about arts and music, and also kind of blending in some of my science background and understanding, everything from a little bit of botany or a little bit of epidemiology, with some of the broader questions I have about music. And as much as I love the sciences, I like that in the arts, you don't always have a right or wrong answer. And what you do won't always, I don't have to worry about like the sweat, dripping off my forehead while I'm trying to like cut a vein for surgery or something. Like that type of stuff would stress me out so much. I think because I was really bad at the game operation, I just
Mm.
could not imagine myself doing those things. So I really like that it's so flexible and so many people can have different opinions, and it really just makes you think. There's a lot of there's just so much to learn. So
What was it about games in the 1960s through like the 90s that they weren't fun? They were just like, "Hey, let's give you fucking anxiety." And then you like, "Don't Wake Daddy." Do you remember that one? Operation was another one
yeah,
where it's like,
hungry
"Don't Wake
hungry
Daddy."
hippo of just
Hungry
like
Hungry Hippo. You're like, "Ah."
There was the
Yeah.
one.
You
There was the one with the alligator teeth,
yeah
alligator dentist or whatever.
Yep, yep, yep.
Have you seen the people
Alligator
modify
dentist.
Oh
that?
my god.
They put like
yeah.
exacto blades on the teeth
Oh,
at the top, and he just like, dude, that's
or
That
Jenga.
is no
Jenga.
Jenga.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, none of those games are enjoyable.
The
Don't
Oregon
break the
Trail,
ice.
The
Yeah,
Oregon,
those
don't
games.
break the ice. Yeah.
Don't
Oh
get
man.
shot.
Scurvy.
That was a
Yeah.
scary one, actually.
Don't Wake Daddy was
Arrows.
weird though. Like Daddy, you probably need to get put in another home if Daddy's getting that angry at you when you wake him up.
I don't think child abuse was in the manual or
No, it would
in
just
the
it
backstory.
was in every home in the
It's
1960s.
yeah.
It's the
I don't
American
think,
way.
but I don't think it was the lore of the game, Leo.
The Lore of the Rings. There's a famous
Lord.
picture, and
Uh-huh.
since we're on the topic of ethnomusicology and
Is that the
games that give you
topic we're on?
anxiety, there's a picture. I think it's Francis Densmore,
Yeah.
and everybody knows that picture. It's
Uh-huh.
there's a Blackfoot chief with a headdress on, and they have like an old gramophone,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
they're just recording. I don't know what they were recording, but that I have the picture pulled up on my phone. But
Yeah.
when you're talking about that, and that's what I think of ethnomusicology. But this is what is important for you, people like you, and you specifically as an educator, because like you were just saying, you worked 3, 4 different jobs while you were, trying to figure things out and pursue stuff. I was doing the same thing. I was never exposed, and I could probably, Kurt and Adam would both agree, never exposed to music as a thing of like, it just kind of like a nominal thing, right?
Hmm.
Never exposed to it as a field of like study history that has a context and culture and society, sociology. So having an educator like you, where you were able to break it down in a way that was like it was digestible, but it was also fascinating, I think is super important. Because we were talking about music being such a meritocracy, even now, like the music industry, it's the same way.
Hmm.
We were talking about music competitions and how like that's a meritocracy. But when you ethnomusicology, I just feel like it lends itself to being like, hey, like this isn't a race, this isn't a game, this is just it is what it is. Like we're observing the things as they are, and that's fucking cool.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely, I was going to say certainly and definitely, and I said dirt, but there are certainly people who um, might bring the meritocracy to their approach to ethnomusicology, right? But I find that a lot of the scholars I really connect with, um, you know, we have a bit more of, kind of an inclusive and inquisitive approach, which, has been I would say more characteristic of our field than like, definitely from, I mean, Francis Densmore's time was, problematic. Like we can look back and be appreciative that we have some of the recordings, but how they were made, who made them, where they pointed the microphone, all of that has issues with, especially how people of color were treated and looked at. And but yeah, I feel like I got into ethnomusicology from the classical side because for me it felt like I could be more um, I didn't have to work so hard to like play Mendelssohn in a way that everybody would approve of. Um, Later you find out, oh, well, I have to write my articles in ways that people will approve of them. So there's still some of that. But I feel like I found a pretty good niche in my field, and with the Latin American and Caribbean Study Group that I helped found. It's part of the International Council for Traditions of Music and Dance. So that's been one of my highlights of my that part of my field and my profession, is connecting with scholars. And I got to see a bunch of them in Cuba a month ago, so that was great.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned some
Who
of
was
the
your
like.
favorite scholar to meet in Cuba?
Trying to think. I mean, I've met a bunch of. I mean, a lot of them were like friends that helped set up the conference with me. Trying to think. So I guess I knew a bunch of the people from before. I don't know if I could pick a favorite. I really like the board that I work with. Like Javier and Nora. I'll make sure I send this to them, and like Lucy Lene and several of the people in the group who I worked with for years. My friend Juan. There'd be a lot to list. Now I don't want people to come at me like you didn't list me, but
Little Dr. Bacardi, you know what I'm saying?
I had very little of that. Well, I had a few mojitos, but yeah.
The good side.
Sorry, say that again.
Adam.
I didn't hear. No.
Double down, Adam.
If anybody wants to get on your list,
Oh,
Oh
you
yeah,
need to.
share our show.
yeah.
Adam is like God in this episode. He just every once in a while we're like, "What's that, Lord? What did you say?"
Braden Wiggins says that you didn't list him.
Oh, Braden's great, but he wasn't in Cuba.
That's right. Yeah, Braden, why weren't you in Cuba?
Braden would make a really good Cuban, like with the hat and a little, yeah. Like I'm just picturing him in a whole Cuban, like 1960s. I'm thinking Buena Vista Social Club, Braden.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think we should do is, and I have this idea because when I first went to Cuba, we stayed at a hotel and there was a UCLA Armenian Studies like reunion. Like the professor who started that program has a bunch of his alumni. Like they meet all over the world, and they'll just be like every couple of years they'll just meet somewhere. And as long as things don't change drastically after the elections and we can still go to Cuba, I say we have a breakfast club reunion back
I'm down. Yeah, let's all bring our. Let's have a jam. Are we gonna jam? We're getting the band back together.
Yeah, that'd
Dude,
be great.
I would love that. That's awesome.
Gotta bring Sophie. Like who else?
Sophie.
A whole bunch of people from that class. I have the little roster, so I can look up everybody's who's there.
Hold on. You keep the roster like framed on your wall or on your fridge?
Of that class, just of that class.
Just of that class. That was a good class.
That was a really
I had so
class.
much fun.
It was nice being there with so many people who are new to the university. I know my experience when we started there was like there was already kind of established groups of musicians and cliques a little bit. And so it was kind of hard as a transfer student to kind of find that group. But with your class, I mean, it was just such a different subject. Monday morning, 8:30 in the morning, and we just had so much fun.
Yeah.
And I think we made really good friends. Adam, I don't think you were in that class.
I bust out.
Lord, can you hear me? Are you listening?
Well, I think I think that class was extra fun
I can
because
hear your prayers, my child.
Jesus Christ.
like almost everybody was a transfer
Adam was
student.
there.
I
Come
think
on.
Yeah.
you were the ones that weren't afraid of an 8 a.m. class. And so, and I was 30 when I was hired and started there. So I felt like we were all like we had similar senses of humor
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you
we
know,
did.
I love transfer like the attitudes that transfer students have coming in is usually just wonderful. Like they're a little bit less fearful about saying the wrong thing. They're a little bit more like open to learning and having and just like going off topic because it's interesting and not going, oh, is this going to be on the test, right? When they're
Yeah. Oh.
so
They're more disillusioned of the world. They're like,
This-
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be a rock star. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think I was like 29. I was like a couple years younger than you in that class. But I was already like I was like, man, kids I remember
And now you're
enough-
older than her.
now I'm older than you. This is wild. I got the opposite Benjamin Buttons. That was
Right?
the college
Yes.
experience,
do that,
especially at
man?
that school, because it's a commuter school. There's a lot of people that come in from like I lived in Corona, but then there's people that are going the 4-year route. They went there the entire time, and I think that's what you were talking about, Kurt. There's like these kind of nothing wrong. It's just the natural way things work, little cliques of people. But then you
Yeah.
had kids like us or old men like us that were like, I need to get a fucking degree to get a job. I'm gonna be working at BJ's the rest of my life. Folks, BJ's is a pizza house.
Yep.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Or
And
you do what you
beer.
got to do to make money.
You
Leo,
got to
20
do what
bucks
you
is
yeah,
20
I'm not
bucks, man.
slut
No
shaming.
judgments here. No judgments.
Don't want to
BJ's
yuck
house.
yo yum. Yeah, you know how many times I'd be like, I work at BJ's, like, oh. Like, all right,
Have a
man. What do you want to order, dude? Like
I worked at Applebee's for a semester and
Oh, we don't do that.
I was
No.
a hostess and I would never I'm not a fan of Applebee's to this day. That was a hard job.
It's
And
2
it
for
was
20.
hard. Yeah,
$2 margaritas.
but
Right.
you paid for the semester. I mean, you had to do what you got to do, right?
yeah, that was when I was student teaching. So I would do double shifts on the weekends
Ooh.
and
Apple
usually work
battles.
Friday nights and then I would work like a day job with the teacher all week and I had a
Oh, wow.
I had a laundry basket of summer clothes that were clean that I never put away until after Christmas because I was just so busy I didn't stop.
Smart move. I mean, you didn't have to do laundry.
It's efficient. It's an efficient lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt this way because I was working throughout college my entire time, but
Mhm.
there was a little bit of like I would see kids that didn't have to work, and they're like, oh, we're going over here after class, and then we're gonna go do this, and then we're gonna go play a show, and I would be like, and I'm grown past it. I'd only hate them a little bit now, but I was like so. I guess now that I have the context and the words to say, like I was just very
Jealous?
jealous of their privilege.
Mhm.
Look at that. I used the P word.
Yeah.
But did you feel that way going? Because like you
yeah.
went all. I mean, you've reached the upper echelons of academia as far as I'm concerned. You
well,
did
I
it.
did apply for a full professor. So once I get that, then I'll be at the upper echelon.
Oh, so you're associate.
Yeah.
Are you tenure track?
Yeah, so tenure track, and then I got tenured at in 2021,
That's right.
and then thank you, and then it was
Yes.
very hard applying for that during the beginning of the pandemic,
Nice.
and then I moving up for early promotion because I did not slow down the last few years, and we'll hopefully have a full professorship starting in the fall.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it's been a trip.
What would you do if you were selected as the department
Yes.
chair for however long that tenure would be?
Hopefully not die of a heart attack.
Fair.
Mm.
Fair.
That's a stressful job.
It's a 4-year appointment, isn't it?
I think technically
Right.
it's 3. Some people
Oh,
hang
yeah,
out longer. Dr. Copland's doing really well despite like everything like blows up every week, like the recital hall floods or he came in during the pandemic. Like he's had a hard time. I've done my best to be like, what do you need help with? Because like I don't want people to get sick from the stress, and
Right.
I want to like help things improve in the
You guys need
department. But yeah.
Speaking of Buena Vista Social Club, that man can rock a Buena Vista Social
need a
Club hat
Department chair
very
or
well.
a maintenance man.
Department of Maintenance. Why, you want a job, Adam? I don't think you can do it remotely.
From
So
getting
the
off.
facilities job, like
Yeah, you know,
where what Will was working as, the facilities like sound tech person, that's gonna be opening up again. So
Ooh.
just saying.
They're still letting Copland be in charge, Braden asks.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I think they elected him, Braden. I think it's a little more than letting him.
Yeah. He's doing his best, and I like working with him. I know I think some people thought that he and I would clash the most, but we both have a strong love for espressos in Cuba, and we get along. So
His espresso machine. I have a story. He was my advisor, and I hope he hears this episode
we'll
because
make sure we share it with him.
oh yeah. So it was during he taught the Beatles class, which was I loved it. If you didn't like the Beatles, you hated it, but I loved it. And the first, what's that? Adam, turn your mic up again. Lord,
My mic's
there you go,
all the way
handsome.
up.
That's better. But I took this Beatles class.
My mic is all the way up. Can you hear me? God.
You can hear you fine. You sound good. I want you
Adam's
to read.
like the drunk guy at the bar that just screams in the middle of like, we're trying to have a nice dinner right now.
He's got
and
like
that
the
guy
perfect
keeps interrupting us.
He has the perfect heckle, but because of his Wi-Fi, he's like a couple beats way too late.
That crazy person keeps talking about a Vietnamese cat. It's weird. I hate LA.
But yeah, I was super late to the midterm, and like traffic was just gross. It took me forever to get there, and it was like right after Halloween, and I came into class, and everyone's dead silent, and he's just glaring at me, and I had been late every class that whole semester so far. Like 10 minutes late. Just parking, it was awful.
Parking, the side note for anybody listening who didn't go to Cal Poly at that time, parking was horrendous. I spent even an hour looking for parking sometimes.
Yep.
And yeah.
And I had to take my younger sister to school, so it's your fault, Lindsay. But so like I drop her off, and then I have to book it to class. And I walked in late, and I felt so bad that I don't know what was going in my mind, but I had like some Halloween candy in my pocket. So like I walk into the class, and he's just livid, just glaring at me. And I walk up, I go to his desk, I go, I'm so sorry, I'm late. It was a rough morning. And I put a Snickers bar on his desk, and he stared death into my soul and went, take the paper and take your test. And I'm like, oops. So I like sat down, and I like started doing the exam, and he comes to my desk, he takes my exam away, he goes, that's the wrong paper, and he brings the right one to my desk, and I'm just like, I felt so bad. And I went up to him after class, and I said, I'm so sorry, that was really inappropriate. And he goes, just stop fucking being late, man. And I'm like,
it'd be awesome.
I was never late again.
If this was a movie,
never late again.
If this was a movie, he'd keep you after class. He'd be like, you know what? That's what John and Paul would have done, and then he would have given you an A+. It's a Beatles class. This is
quit being a Pete Best, Kurt.
Yeah, do you remember like my first day, or like our first day in that class, and then nobody warned me that traffic gets bad around campus, like to get onto campus, right? And I was thinking, coming from the west side, I was like, oh, I'm going east. It'll be fine. There won't be any traffic. I did my whole orientation the week before. No traffic, no traffic, no traffic. Getting there for like 8 and 9 a.m. Nobody told me like, oh, Mount Sac starts the next week.
Oh my God, I forgot about Mount
Sac. And so I was driving in. I was going to be 45 minutes early. I'm on the 57. And then like, remember the train used to run, and it would block everybody getting off of at Temple, and then so I was going to try to like swerve out and get off, but they had those, those big construction trucks that carry like all the gravel. So they're like 3 giant sections of gravel, and I was blocked by 2 of them. So I couldn't go around and then get off and re-go up, whatever. And so I had to call Kim when it was like 15 minutes from class. I sat there for half an hour. And
oh yeah,
Kim,
it's 15 minutes past.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm off to a rocky start because of the gravel.
Yeah, totally. Man, you're good at this, Liam. But do you remember Kim went in and she like told you all like you can't leave and the 15-minute rule isn't true, and I just like busted in, just angry at myself because when I took 8 a.m. trumpet and trombone techniques, I was late every day because I was an insomniac. I just didn't sleep, and I was a first-year student, and just trying to like get enough sleep after playing Rummy 500 with my friends all night, and and I would just like walk in every day for the whole semester late, and then I slept in through the final exam. And the final exam ended up being all the brass technique students coming together and taking it in like one of the big rehearsal rooms. So I walked in to a class of like 100 people taking their exam 30 minutes late. You always know it's a bad sign during the semester when you wake up, you're like, I feel so well rested. Like, why do I feel so great? And you're like, oh, because I slept in through class 30 minutes.
And then you feel the worst you've ever felt.
Right. And I bust in terrified, and the professors look at me. The trumpet professor just is like doing the same thing that Copland did to you. And then also the
trombone professor just goes, wah, wah.
I wish. I would have made it less awkward, right?
There's Adam. There's Adam. Is he choking or laughing?
Both.
But I took that exam so fast, though, so much adrenaline that I finished first, and I think they looked at me like, and I still got a 3.8 in that class. So,
Look at that.
but that's why I always have a soft spot for people, because it's like, I feel like my life sometimes is that, to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street and the kid going through and thinking of all the crazy stuff that happened, but half of that actually did happen to me as I'm trying to get someplace. But I mean, Dave's right. He's like, you got to stop being late because it's hard. You can't do that for gigs. So
yeah, and then spring I was on time, and then the next fall I fractured my kneecap and I was late every day.
I remember. But
I'd have crutches.
I used to have to help you pee.
There you go. The shuttles wouldn't wait for me.
No.
I'd be like,
they're like, fuck that guy.
Like rowing a boat.
Drive
It felt like
as fast as you
so
can.
I'd be super late. And Dr. Revere, I love Dr. Revere, but I would come into her class like super late, and I'd open the door and I'd see the look on her face as the door opened because it's black. They're watching a video, and she would just have this look on her face like, who dares come into my class? And I overplayed it, but it was real. I'd have my crutches. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm late. She's like, oh, bless his heart, like it's true. I couldn't help it, but
dude, you gotta use it when you got it, man. That's
I'm
good.
So sorry. Yeah. I had when I went to my cane, that was nice. I got in a car accident once where I lightly rear-ended this car, and I was fine. I was completing my physical therapy. I could walk fine. But I was like, I just rear-ended these people, and I'm driving a rental. So my cane was in the seat next to me, and I totally didn't need it, but I grabbed it anyway. And I'm like, are you guys okay? Yeah. And they're like, oh, we're fine. use it when you need it, I guess.
Old man Bemke with his cane. Nice. Kurt, you seem like a cane guy. Like, I feel like you're gonna, how like some people just develop, like I'm a toothpick guy now. Like,
I'm a cane man. It's pronounced Kahneman.
Right. And Dr. Copland, he's got his fedora hats,
Yes. Mine is a cane and now a fake limp.
There's a Loteria card with the dude with Copland's hat and Kurt's cane. Yeah. Yeah.
They made a CPP Loteria game. I have it. During the pandemic, I called the Loteria cards on a Zoom like Loteria night, so that was cool. I'm really glad I have that. But
one of these days, I put on a Latino music festival in Oregon called El Tigre. one of these days when we get the funding, I would love to have your mariachi band come up
Sure.
to
That'd
come
be great.
play. That'd be awesome. That was one thing we got. One of the not critiques, feedback that we get from the community. They're like, we want more mariachi. But my big thing, like, I love mariachi. Don't get me wrong, but when most of the time when you go to especially in Oregon, not necessarily California, but anytime there's like hey, we're having a Hispanic Heritage Month, it's always just like two mariachi bands. And
Yeah.
my big thing is like there's like so many different like varieties of like music that come from Latin America. So like but
Yeah.
if I'm gonna have a mariachi band, it's gonna be
Yeah.
a good one. And I'm looking at you.
I appreciate it. I
Viewers,
appreciate it.
listeners, I'm looking at Dr. V.
Yeah. And as much as I love, like, I mean, I could listen to mariachi all day, and I love that it's such a central part of my life, but I totally get it. You know, having done work in Ecuador, my comadre is Salvadoran. You know, you just see the way that a lot of places get sort of overlooked, and then also different ethnic groups in Latin America. You know, Asian Latin Americans, you know, Afro Latin Americans, and I feel like when I went to college, I had a small, like, the Caribbean Latin American Student Society, and then the Black Student Alliance. Like, it kind of reminds me of the show Dear White People. Like, that was very much a lot of my college experience, but in like
Yeah.
a smaller school, like more of a rural setting and things. And I feel like I learned so much from especially the BSA students who are, like, you know, Black and Caribbean, and
Yeah.
like trying to talk about, like, you know, the Latin American events. They would all be like, we don't want to talk about Mexico. And I was like, you know, I grew up being like one of the only Mexican American people in my whole town. So like I was like, why not? Like, I never hear about Mexico, but now I get it. Like, it can be overplayed to the, which I'm fine with mariachi being involved in a lot of things, but I do think representation, rotating or sharing the stage is important. Yeah.
Mm.
So,
You were mentioning like Afro Latinos, that we had a Puerto Rican puesto that they made delicious Puerto Rican food, like empanadas and like stuff I've never tried.
hmm.
And there was a couple of my colleagues from work, and they were Afro Latino, and they're Latino, and they like their minds like you could see their face, like their brains being melted when they were like, there's a Black Latino person. Like it was incomprehensible to them. And then they tried the food. They're like, okay, this is really good.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Dr. Vallejo, I don't mean to switch gears too much, but when it comes to your experience with, we're using the term music academia, but when it comes to your experience with that, how is it different now versus when you were, or your experience now as a professor versus when you were learning, when you were a student?
Yeah. Yeah, because when I started, we had, like, social media was AOL Instant Messenger. Like, it was very much not that much happening, and you know, it wasn't common. Like, we would leave our AOL, you know, our AIM up, and then we didn't bring our laptops to class. Like, nobody brought their laptop to class, and I was a lot of people brought desktops to campus. So we also didn't have internet my first semester. We had intranet. So you could, like, share files with everybody on campus, and there are all these, like, scandals of how people could, like, copy things, or, like, I don't know, all sorts of things that I don't know if I can share on here, because it's this one scandal was ridiculous that
It's public
one
record. Go ahead.
told me about. It was, I don't know if this was public record. I
Oh,
think
okay,
there
never
was
mind.
there was some inappropriate tape made, and actually, like, somebody was being slut shamed for it. And one of my friends, because this was the year before I got there, he knew how to log in and find that file on every computer that had, like, downloaded it to their, like, whatever F drive or whatever it was, right?
No pun intended.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But so then
Sorry.
he went through and he deleted everything for her so that she wasn't being shamed that way. And so he deleted everything. So it was like a whole different world of using the internet, and you had to like log into the one like internet connection that the campus offered you, and it was totally different. So a lot more like hanging out in the lounges, hanging out in the quads, um, practicing till really late. And I feel like none of us were trying to like match what anybody was doing on TikTok or Instagram. We were all trying to, or YouTube, like we were trying to um, emulate whatever was in the recordings and things like that. So I feel like in some ways it was a little bit more focused and more present. Um, on the other hand, like I liked how we have access to global things that I didn't at that age. So I you know I guess that's been one of the most interesting changes, is just the technology of like, I was a card catalog kid. I remember when they sent the first email from school in second grade, and like all of these changes. And then um now just seeing like we all just use our phones, and there's all these other internet things that change learning, or sort of block it, like ChatGPT and AI, which have their uses. But like, if somebody abuses it and doesn't actually learn from college, like I don't know why they're wasting more than the money. I don't know why they're wasting their 20s or whatever age being in college if they don't actually want to learn the skills that you have to be able to do at some point. So it's hard enough to get a job when you get out and you are good at what you do. And so like, why sabotage yourself and not develop things when you have that opportunity? You're investing your time, so why not?
Yeah, you kind of throw
I got-
I think of that meme of the person
Yeah,
that's
I got
riding
a
the bike and they're
question
putting
for
the stick
that.
in the. Oh,
Yeah,
God
I think,
speaks.
I think that was God.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yes, God.
Oh, I
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
had a
Lord.
question. So with music now and chat chat GDP coming into school now, what do you think it's gonna stop people from learning how to develop their music, or do you think it's gonna develop more and more of just like an extra helping hand? Uh, or
Okay, so I think the
extra
question.
or
Sorry, Lord, you work in mysterious
You-
ways.
I think the question was like, could it help or hinder
so
people's
mysterious,
creativity,
aren't
right?
it?
So try again, Dr. Vallejo.
So is it
Yes.
is the question like, could ChatGPT like help or hurt people's creativity, or like how do I see that happening, or is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So I would
Yes.
say,
See, wait.
yeah,
There's a 3-second delay.
Hey,
okay. So I would say that I think that like one of the best times or ways to use ChatGPT is when you actually know a lot and you're really good at whatever you're using it for, right? And so I left these in my office to show students, but I spent, when I broke my ankle last spring, I spent my recovery time crocheting ChatGPT figures and then crocheting like the actual figure. So I made a hammerhead shark, a very cute hammerhead shark, and one was a pattern I paid like $2 for, and the other was a pattern that ChatGPT made for me. And the ChatGPT one looks like a molecule. It looks nothing like a hammerhead shark whatsoever. And then the cute one looks pretty adorable, and I like it. Um, so I use that as an example. Like if you know crocheting, you can look at this and judge from it, what you want. Um, but if you have no idea what you're doing, you're not going to learn anything from that. So I think like I hope people, students and non-students, realize that like there could be great uses for it. I have to summarize an article that I wrote, right? So I could put my article into it. It could create the 100-word abstract, and then I know what I wrote, so I can go through and edit it, right? Um, because you still have to edit, and that could be a good use of my time. Like, why slave, over, like, why spend 30 minutes doing that when I can do it literally in 5? And um for writing music, I guess I don't think that AI is going to, they're spending all this money and spending like all this energy to try to create in ways that people do, that so many of us do, and we don't get paid enough for it, right? It's kind of astounding how they're doing that. And then but I think I read that, like, for every image that chat gpt creates, it's enough energy that it requires from computers. It's like what it takes to charge a cell phone from 0 to 100%. Like, it's not sustainable. And so I'm not even sure what it's going to look like. Well, maybe we should fact check that. That was just something I saw, like, cited on social media, right? But when you think
And it's
about
right.
it,
That's correct.
yeah.
If it's on social media.
Right. That it's just not very sustainable. And you know they're putting so much money into trying to replicate what so many humans do so well. Like, why?
It's
I'm
a black box fallacy where we just think it's a magical thing happening, but there's all these little, like you're saying, like super not climate friendly things that are going on. There was an article I read too that there's actual farms of people
Yeah.
in Vietnam,
Mhm.
ironically, where Adam is, and the Philippines that are
Like
like
sweatshops.
keep making sure that these servers don't go down, so that we can
Woohoo.
make a picture of Joe Biden eating a hot dog while he's flying a unicorn. Like,
And then they also test for, like, all of those little, like, when you have to prove you're not a bot, and it's like, click the light, or the light bulbs or whatever, right? And like, there's people who actually have to sit there for like 10 hours a day and click on what the light bulbs are, so that they're training the computer that then is our, like, little um, authenticator type of thing. So yeah, a lot of ethical issues in a lot of this technology and what tech bros are doing. And that's why I like being on the side of thinking about those ethics and the humanities, and maybe a little bit more analog in some sense. You know.
I always, when it comes to like Adam's question on AI, and you mentioned, I don't think you said you don't think it'll ever replace actual, like, the collectivism and the actual experience that we get from music. I always think of like, who will ever go pay money? I mean, people do go to raves to go see a DJ press buttons, but like the experience that you have from going to see a live concert with other people, of like live musicians, can never be replicated by like a computer creating things, um, unless we're in a simulation. And that's where we're going on this podcast.
Oh, yeah, when does that start? We could do that from so far away. But
Yeah,
Being in a simulation.
yeah.
I'm actually a solipsist, so I believe I'm the only thing that exists, and
no.
y'all are creations of my mind.
oh, we're all NPCs in your brain.
I'm the main character.
Yeah, okay, that's, and we're NPCs in your game.
Yeah,
You meant
the game
we're
sucks.
we're on the topic of music and academia, and you mentioned something earlier on, Dr. Vallejo, when we first started talking. When I mentioned the Francis Densmore
Mhm.
photo, you brought up, like, looking back, looking back ethically through the lens, a modern lens of their practices. A lot of the stuff that they were doing was problematic. Could you also apply that to academia, to from what you see now as a professor, um, in your career, looking back, and even in your own academic career, do you see any problematic themes in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there have always been issues of, like, abuse and power abuse, um, and the ways that, the university is supposed to be about, knowledge and sharing knowledge and everything, but there's a lot of ways that the town and gown relationships aren't very good, or sometimes they're harmed by the university. So, like, you think about, how some universities have, like, the skulls of some people from, from people's research, or from nearby areas, or the way that gentrification can happen. Or, like, I know, like, Syracuse University back home, they buy up land, and in some ways, like, okay, maybe they're cleaning up parts of the city, but there are a lot of people who've been there for generations, and or some people who come in as refugees and are placed there who just need help with, better infrastructure and social systems, and setting up, like private shuttles for some of these universities like USC. Is it that really the thing that is helpful, or is
Hmm.
um, having a better town and gown relationship with, Metro and, the services that everybody would benefit from? I really like that UCLA has such a good partnership with, the Blue Bus and Metro and, Culver City Bus, and Cal Poly's working hard on repairing our relationships with Foothill Transit, because a past president actually took the buses off campus and basically severed those relationships. Um, in part because they didn't want people who are too black and too brown, too poor, coming to campus, and didn't want them coming to campus from Chino prison. And I don't know if any of you have had family who've been in jail. I have, and in some cases it wasn't always fair. People were profiled, and it's pretty traumatizing. You think, like, if somebody's starting their life again, they finally get out, like, I would hope they would look to education as one place that could be, um, renew their hope in humanity or something, and um, I don't know. We're the transportation committee, and I were talking the other day and joking about how, like, a lot of the violent things that have happened on campus, not that many, but it's usually been somebody who drove in on a car and then like stole something, right? So like there's a reason why it's called a getaway car, not a getaway bus. And
Have you seen
so,
Speed? I'm sorry.
well, yeah,
It's a great
Cruise
great
Control.
yeah,
Oh, the second one with the boat. Wow, Kurt.
Well, both of them. I
yeah.
know
So,
the Speed lore.
yeah, I think I don't think let's see. I think universities are susceptible to the same social ills that we see in society at any given time anyway. And sometimes they can be like a little petri dish for that. So, the
Mhm.
Me Too movement, you pick whatever cause, and like there have certainly been ethical issues and ways that
Mm.
universities, despite having things online saying that their morals or their ethics are this, there's tons of room for improvement. So,
I call that chequity when organizations and universities are like, we stand with Black Lives Matter and we see you on Hispanic Heritage Month. It's like,
Mhm.
well, uh, you still allow all this other.
Awareness is one thing, action is another.
right.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's just the easy route to do, and I've seen that. I mean, even Cal Poly, like, the biggest disconnect for me, apart from your course, and Kurt and I have talked about this before. There's like a really lush, thriving history of like Mexican American, ton of music culture, just like literally like 2 miles away from campus.
Mhm,
But like we never interacted with that at all, in the music department,
mhm,
um, outside of like things that we learned with you. And that seemed like a big disconnect. And I'm not, and it's not like an indictment of the music program at Cal Poly, just an indictment of like maybe like music and academia in general, of like where we've, like you
Well,
said, like there's people that cut off ties with the Foothill Transit System. They did that kind of like these institutions exist on an island, and they're cutting off ties with the communities that kind of like they wouldn't have been there had it not been for the communities around them.
right.
and to your point too, Leo, maybe not look at it as something malicious, but what a missed opportunity.
Yes.
There's 23 campuses in the Cal State system in 23 different communities. I mean, what sort of perspective, if those are resources being split up, I mean, per allocation, per tuition brought in per year, you know, to connect with that local community and to really bring that in. I mean, what a draw for literally the largest educational system on the planet.
Mhm. I mean, oh man. Now, so I was involved with some activism, my first year of college, actually, for when SUNY Potsdam had their budget slashed, and I learned a lot about the land grant system in those years. I had a whole bunch of time on my hands being a first year student, and so I like did all this research and interviewed the budget, director for the campus, and went to NYPIRG, and I made a website that the budget director saw for New York State, and so Pataki's budget director. asked, little 19-year-old me to go have a meeting with them. And so I did all
Wow.
alone. And I was like fearless about it. I didn't care about their titles at that age. I was just like, I knew the facts and they were trying to tell me I was wrong. And, I was upset that funding was cut. But basically, let's see, with the land grant system, a lot of these state schools, they were specifically placed in areas that needed like financial revitalization, right? And so I especially think that the CSUs need to stick to their um, our mandate, our charters to like serve the community. And unfortunately, there aren't always administrators who prioritize those uh, types of projects or make it easy for faculty to do it. And I'm not even just talking about like a figure like the a president of a campus. Like a lot of times, there's other AVPs in different areas that or like people within the presidential cabinet who advise on what to do and what to prioritize. I know Cal Poly wants to create this other downtown arts center soon. They had tried it years ago, and that's what ended up being the Daw Center because Cal Poly abandoned it, and then the Daw Center became a private or like a nonprofit, separate organization, and is hungry for having Cal Poly students involved. And so that was one of the things I tried really hard to do in my whenever I teach the music integration and service learning, class. But the service learning class, we usually would, one of the partnerships would be the DAW whenever I teach it. I'm not sure what's going to happen if the university goes through and like now creates like a duplicate of that essentially. And, is it better to create something and have the Cal Poly brand on it, or is it better to have a strong partnership with something that already exists? And so yeah, I feel like it's complicated in the ways that more people could do it. Not all faculty are able to live near campus, for prices, for depending on where they have family, where their partners work, all of that. Um, Sometimes I think, especially in the case of Pomona, I don't think a lot of faculty identify with the demographics of the city of Pomona. And I'm really thankful I feel at home and that in Pomona, and that I can sit there and like everybody wants to talk to me if I'm out there in my mariachi outfit, and I can talk to them in English and Spanish. And a lot of times this some of the people have asked me in Spanish, like, well, I didn't think I could go to campus, like I thought it was just for the students because it seems so separate. And trying to break that barrier of like, no, come to our concerts. Like we have concerts every night. Every ensemble would be thrilled to have more people show up, every event, right? Like please come. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done, but it really takes pounding the pavement in the sense of like going out there, talking to people, meeting people, being present there, but a lot of faculty are spread thin. So it's like,
It's hard.
I wish more of them were doing that with me, but I also understand like none of us are doing okay. Like we're all really, processing the pandemic, all the ways we had to reinvent our job, all the ways that we're dealing with having to navigate how to help students who are also not doing okay. I just had a talk with one professor about, a student who I think is having a mental health crisis, and it's more frequent now. And so it's challenging.
Can I ask what the campus culture is like with at least regarding the music department's relationship with the rest of campus after COVID? I just Leo, I think you and I were in that committee. We were trying to establish a kind of a concert venue, a small little venue somewhere on campus, utilizing underutilized space. Adam, I don't know if you were a part of that group, but I remember we met with the university president. Were you in that meeting?
I wasn't in the meeting, but we had talked about it.
Yeah.
A lot.
And we met with the president, and we had a building scoped out. We had reached out to the proper parties about it, and she was very, very dismissive, the president at the time.
It seemed like they kind of got laughed out of the room. Like
I was going to say
a waste of our time.
It was, yeah.
Because they're not making any money off of it. So it's going to be hard for them to say, oh, yeah, this is going to be good publicity for us, or this is going to bring in extra whatever for us, versus the problem that they probably already have.
That's with any administrative, and to speak to what Dr. Vallejo was talking about too. You think, and I love the way that you kind of analyze things, because you don't think in like personal, like, oh, it's this person. You think in like systems, like it's a systemic issue. You're like, well, it's the problem with this that falls down through here. It's the same thing with when you get into like the leadership statuses of like these organizations, right? They're not necessarily that
The
person
bureaucracy. Yeah.
you get caught in the red tape of the bureaucracy, but also like this, it's dollar signs, right? And it's in no fault of the person. I mean, maybe a little bit, but they go into these positions and they have to keep these institutions afloat, and they have all these different like moving mechanisms. And the most profound way that someone kind of like demystified equity work for me was when they told me they did equity work at organizations, and they were able to quantify how much money an institution was losing by not reaching out to the local marginalized groups, or by the lawsuit that someone had filed from a racist interaction. When you can put pen to paper and tell the vice president of an institution, you're losing X amount of dollars by not reaching out to these people, then they're like, oh, I'm on board with equity now because I want those dollar signs. Sucks.
Can we
but that's
hire this guy, or who's your
Yeah.
friend? But no, it's true. Like, and because I'm not sure if they would have, if the issue would be so much of could they make money off of having, it was a Naranjita Center, and I know I was all for it too. I think space is often an issue, and the way that they had to like increase enrollment to make up for the impending like enrollment cliff that's coming up, that a lot of universities are dealing with, that is coming sooner than everybody anticipated because of the pandemic and because of the like rhetoric around like a degree isn't worth anything. um if people want to go to a trade school, like that's fine, but like the trade school is where like you train to go straight into a career. A liberal arts style college is about developing skills so that you can do a lot of different things, and you have majors to focus in an area, but we're not a trade school like you're going to do this and you're going to get out and you're going to be like an electrician working on for LADWP, right? um and I come from a family of trades workers, so like I know how hard everybody works and how essential those skills are. So I think it's like they're both necessary, they're both essential for the health of like our society. But it's hard when like they're trying to turn education into either like more like a trade school, and like they're cutting GEs again. So since I've been hired, 9 units of the arts and humanities and social sciences have been cut from the GE curriculum you all took. 9 units, which means we all lose funding, right? So that's why the college isn't doing as well. So we're being streamlined into like more of a corporate business model, and then also like a trade school. And some of that is coming from not a campus president, but like the chancellor, and then this system. There's this like what do they call it? It's CalGETSI, but it's basically a system with representatives from community colleges, UCs, and CSUs, but there are no arts and humanities or social sciences representatives on that. So a lot of these decisions to cut certain areas just because we added area F for ethnic studies has been a problem. So like sometimes the curriculum side is really the area where you can kind of like carve out and make room to support certain areas. But it becomes such a political like minefield sometimes. And so I've been learning a lot about all of that since I've joined the Senate and been more involved with the union.
You would think that I'm sorry, Lord. This is just
Yes.
going off of that really quick.
I'll just
But you would
raise my
think
hand
that
whenever I want to talk.
well, there's a delay. Sorry. There's you would think that a polytechnic university would be that kind of fine line blend between a trade school and a liberal arts college, if it's about the hands-on experience. Which, not to go into this because I want to hear Adam's question, but one thing we have discussed before is that hands-on learning. That part of the draw to Cal Poly Pomona was that we would get that experience. The other part was the affordability. We didn't really get to an effective extent. that would allow us to be effective in the industries we were hoping to work in.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and maybe that's because we were in the music department at a polytechnic university, and the hands-on stuff really came with all of the other STEM majors, and we were just kind of a side thought. But
It would be nice to have labs that aren't in other buildings that are open more hours for you all, and also actual recording studio space that is not a closet, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it would make it easier to integrate and involve all of the majors, you know, because I do think that sometimes there's a disconnect even between MIS and the performance side. And but there's such a scarcity of time and resources for like people to use the studio. Like,
hmm
I mean, I would love to see, you know, MIS students working more on like, you know, even recording acoustic instruments. So when I play the Viper Room or places like that, not all the sound engineers have ever had to mic somebody who's singing and playing acoustic violin into the microphone. So I mean that happens. Like there are
yeah,
rock and folk artists who do that, and I felt like that was an experience none of you were getting.
well, I
But
in
it's
a,
been hard.
in a previous episode, it was either Adam or Leo made this point that for all the Steinways that we have on campus, each of those rooms could have been furnished as a small recording studio, or at least some way to facilitate the ability to record yourself and experiment with that. Because what was the price that we discovered? It was 27,000 for one of
That's
those Steinways or something.
exactly what I was trying to get at when we were talking about the Francis Densmore picture of
Oh,
like
okay.
looking at so like I feel like academia is stuck in this in the past as far as like the
Gotcha.
where the money goes like
Yeah.
this and I don't know, I haven't been in school for 7 or 8 years, but like Kurt was saying, those Steinway pianos could have been, you sell 2 or 3 of them, we could have gotten a couple MacBook laptops, a couple Scarlett interfaces and a microphone, and anybody in the student in the that program could use it. And it seemed like it was very rooted into this trajectory that was, you're going into, there's only a couple different things you can do in the music industry, and these are the ones that we're going to prep you for. And your take on it, you're saying we're gonna teach you just how to like give you life skills and figure out how to do a bunch of the different things, because like, and then you are gonna go out into the world and figure out on your own, is the approach that like I agree with that. But it just seemed like a lot of, and it's not just this specific school, it just seems like academia and music in general is so rooted in this, I say it all the time, it's very, it's kind of white supremacist, a little bit,
Western classical.
yeah, that's what I was getting at.
And
Western that's the word I was using.
even
That's the word.
Anglophone, right? Like, you know, one of the things I've tried to do is bring in songwriters and bring in people who are involved in the music industry who are people of color. And not a single songwriting student has come to any of those events. And so I think it's a mix of communication, it's a mix of time, it's a mix of, you know, I mean, if I were majoring in music industry studies and thinking like, what do I want to do? Like, I would probably go into something and be looking for like either K-pop or Mexican regional music, right? Like globally speaking, like that's really, they have such a wider audience. I mean, you have a huge K-pop fan base in Indonesia and different places where like parts of Korea,
Huge.
like it's huge in, you know, like Navajo Nation. Like there are tons of people who are like such major K-pop fans that um, you know, I would love to have more of like a global industry studies perspective. Um, I guess it's sometimes people's visions might clash and sometimes people's energies might not be going at the same rate at the same time where it's easy to realize that. I mean, we have talked about it in faculty meetings of ways we would like to like get back on the same page of a vision. A lot of times when organizations have those talks, everybody rolls their eyes because it's like, oh, we're doing this again. But I do think it's needed. And the Lord is, I think, raising your hand, but the camera's a little blurry. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this. What is there anything like or a possibility of a like a librarian of music kind of degree that would be able to be set up, I think that would be even more. It would be more. How do I say it? It'd bring more different music from each region and each culture, and these people could basically study country by country instead of like the global. Because I remember having the world history class of music, and you get like a week of Indian music, you get a week
Mhm.
of African music, you get a week of the entirety of Asia. And it's like, oh, you have so many different cultures and so many different types of people there, and you can't get a good sense of it within a week or in a day. And we have to buy a book that's what, like 27 chapters long, read the whole thing, and
Yeah.
then get an idea that people existed somewhere because of their music.
Which I never liked. I don't assign textbooks unless we use 100% of them. You know,
God
which
bless you.
which we
you.
did in World of Music, right? And then
Yeah.
I uh, I guess like there, we have some type of open access thing where like if students sign up, they get like a package. So like I put a book on there that I want to use in a couple weeks, but like I told the students, if you're not part of that package, like don't bother getting it because I do like reading groups or whatever. But yeah, textbooks are another thing that's if somebody's teaching something that and they don't have some of the experience to kind of like make it easy to set up their class. Like I get why people use textbooks, but yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm a co-editor of this website called worldmusictextbook.org, and
Oh,
we're
wow.
basically using grant money to pay people to write an open access textbook that can be far more interactive. It's a little slow because
Yeah.
it took Cal Poly 2 years and 2 months to cut the payments for the first two publications. Um, so there have been a lot of like staffing issues in the behind the scenes offices um, and lack of
Is that
training and things.
is that a plug? Can you give us that website and that link so we can post it on our
Yeah.
socials?
Yeah.
Music, text. And this is something where like, you know, people don't have to have a doctorate to submit something. You know, somebody who wants to submit like a you know what could an introductory textbook like article 2000 words look like that could be interactive even for MIS, you know, after you've been out in the field and thinking about like skills you still use even if your jobs have kind of like shifted, right?
That's
Podcast,
amazing.
you know, something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like I didn't answer your initial question, Adam, but uh now I'm trying to remember what it was and I can't remember.
A library of
Oh,
like a music librarian type of degree or something like that being
so
available.
our new degree, so after 2018, we switched the semesters. We have the BA in General Studies. And
Mm.
I think some people in the department, we tried to agree that we wouldn't do this, but some people treat a BA in General Studies for music as like the music light degree. For me, it's like you take that degree because you want to take a lot of other electives that round out what you want to do.
Mm.
Somebody who wants to
Yeah.
do ethnomusicology, somebody like might take anthropology classes or ethnic studies classes, like additional ones in there because they have more elective units. Somebody who really wants to do music therapy might take like kinesiology and more science.
Mm.
So I feel like that it for a master's, it makes sense. And so usually if you get your degree in library science, you need a master's. So I think having an undergrad program that's like general enough where somebody can come in, go through the few years, figure out what they want to do, and have the skill set where they can apply to that master's is really what I think we're doing a best like what do I want to say that our department could be stronger at, and I think makes more sense for how the job markets shift because narrowing it too much at the undergraduate level can make it difficult to kind of deal with the changes in time of like you know the MIS degree graduates might be doing something very different even 10 years from now. So I think like leaving it a little more broad um, can be helpful.
So
Mm.
my
So a lot
my
of yeah. Sorry, go
my
ahead.
bachelor's in banjo making was a little too specific, is
I
what you're
haven't seen
telling
you
me?
make a single banjo.
He started on the strings, but never finished the actual body.
And now I have my instrument building class, but it took
Oh,
me forever
yeah.
to do that. Yeah, my
Tell us
organology
about
class.
that. Yeah,
Wait,
that's awesome.
hold on. I need to address it. We do have a chat that I'm monitoring.
Sure.
Because I do want to touch on the instrument building. That's in my
Yeah.
notes.
Okay.
But Braden Wiggins says the music industry is also changing as fast as the internet changes. How can universities even try to keep up? I'm pretty sure that might be like a rhetorical question,
Yeah.
but he says like it's literally changed significantly since I was even in school. So you were our professor when we were in school, and you're still an instructor. How have you seen the internet change how things are done in that time? Thank you, Braden.
Definitely with like the communication or like the ways that, with Zoom, just the different possibilities of, I guess, well, I'm not recording or doing a lot of the production side very often. So I feel a little bit like I'm not the best person to ask about that, but I think that there are all sorts of new programs. There's a lot of like free programs that, what was it? Not Harmony, Acapella. That Acapella app, and now that even feels dated, right? But there are all these things that I think come out that, um, it serves all of us to kind of try to stay at least a little bit up to date. But you get a lot of music faculty who are like, they need to practice piano. They need, I need to practice my violin more. I wish I practiced more. So it can be a little bit difficult. I think, I think this is where I feel like just making sure you all have as strong of a foundation in music and actually in musicianship, music theory, performing in some way, you will have the understanding of music to apply that to whatever apps, to whatever programs, because if you have a good ear, like, you can make something sound the way you want it with the tools that are developed later on, right?
That's true.
So that would be my like best answer to that. But
so don't go so specific as you would in Diddy's Flavor Camp. Go broad and
ooh.
I don't
no,
know.
don't compare me to that.
I don't. I wouldn't. Have you been reading the news?
Did you say Flavor Camp?
Yep, Flavor Camp.
No, they just got OJ flavored.
No.
Too soon?
Okay. I think Braden had another comment, right?
Wait, making music? I mean, making instruments?
Oh, yeah, making instruments.
Thank you.
We're going to sidestep that. So
Good.
my music instrument class.
It's the sharks in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Stopping the news.
But my music instrument building class, that's like one of the classes that wasn't on the books. I totally made up based on like what I sort of took in grad school and what I wish I could have taken as an undergrad. It's basically like I walk students through, from an ethnomusicological perspective of like concepts about instruments. And we talk about everything from sustainability to like issues with making instruments more accessible for somebody who might have different, needs, different impairments, different, whatever. And so they have to make 4 instruments over the semester. And they do readings and reflect on it. So I help them with like the intellectual side. I take them to places on campus where we can collaborate with the STEM side. So we have the student idea innovation labs and the makerspace studio that's new in the library, or newish, a few years ago, where students, they have the tools, they have laser cutters and all sorts of things to make instruments. And so they have to make like a recycled instrument, which is kind of like low stakes. It's like, see what you have laying around the house, turn it into an instrument. Wow. Then they have to do an Arduino theremin, or like they can get fancier. Like a lot of the STEM majors, they could do stuff. I don't have time to learn. I can't take a class in like Raspberry Pi, and maybe one day I will, but I haven't yet. So I do the light sensitive like pseudo theremin, but I give them directions where they can follow him. Like one student made a theremin out of 2 old radio sets, which is really cool.
Dang.
That's cool.
And then they have I tried doing this other woodworking instrument this year, but then some students finished it. I got to revamp how I want to do that project, but there's this thing called a daxophone, DAXOPHONE. And I
Daxophone.
really want to try to force them to do something with the woodcutters, but there's a lot of training to that. So
I gotta look this up. A daxophone.
some of the
Ooh.
recordings are pretty cool. You
It's an
can make your
electric.
own. There's so many different
Oh.
pieces. Um,
It's interesting.
yeah, and then
Oh, you play with a bow.
yeah.
No strings or
I'll
air
put
columns.
a picture in the chat.
So I
Look
realized
at this
that
segue.
that
Side.
what I have to do with the class is like I probably have to make the clamps because we couldn't. I just bought some clamps. I tried to find like an easy way to do it, and so it just sounds very screechy on like the desks. So it didn't turn into like the beautiful music we wanted to make. And then their final project is whatever they'd like to do. So I've had students. Do you remember Jordan Rivera?
Yeah.
He made a prototype of an organ made out of cardboard and a used bookshelf. And
What?
He was always a really bright kid. That he
Yeah.
was. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Wait,
yeah,
a prototype out of a used bookshelf?
he had like a bookshelf and he was like cardboard. He was trying to like work with materials and like recycled things to find ways to make really expensive instruments that he wanted to play that more affordable. And so and then he also like he wanted to work on like a hurdy-gurdy and things like that. So it's funny because I know of at least two students, Jordan and one other student, who took that class, and now both of their mothers have told me I've created monsters of like they just collect all these instruments now. And I basically like gave them a whole field of study that like validates their like instrument collection, like
Yeah.
You
I
created
remember-
a musical Willy Wonka.
yeah.
Like Jordan would have just some ancient instruments. He came on one day. I remember he spent a week playing the crumhorn. We're like, can
Yeah.
we stop playing the crumhorn? Can we?
It's pretty amazing though. Like
It's a cool instrument. It's grating, but I think. I wonder. Is he still? He's not there anymore. But like, does he still come and talk? I don't know.
I saw him not that long ago. And I know he was helping in one workshop with one of the guest speakers I had, Curtis Barak,
Hmm.
from who does harpsichords and hurdy-gurdies in downtown LA.
Okay.
But I'd have to see if I still have him on Facebook or anything like that. But yeah, he's been around a little bit. I know we have to have like some type of an alumni gathering, and try to get people to come back. I
4
think
more years till our 10-year.
I know it goes by fast. I'm
My
on
10-year.
18
Adam's
years since when did I graduate? I graduated 2007, so I'm getting closer to 20 years, which is scary.
From high school, from college.
From college, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
No,
thought
I-
you were saying high school. It's like I am older than you then.
No, that's been 21 years. So, yeah,
There you go.
fun.
we
Yeah,
the
so that's
same
fun
age?
class. So
13 years for me.
nice.
Yeah, from high school.
And
I'm a
then-
youngin.
Thanks for the compliments on the site, by the way. Our co-editor Chris Witolski, who actually makes his own banjos, he and I know him from Crane. We were in a string quartet together my first year, but he runs it on Notion, and I should know the other. But it basically loads from the back end, so it loads everything. That's why it's super quick. But he's really good at like coding and things like that, and I might try to learn more on my sabbatical. I keep trying to learn during the semesters and summers, but I never have time. So, but
So-
he's great. He's wonderful at that.
It's awesome. And is this kind of like an open source article? Like what's the sum it down? Give me a
Yeah.
one sentence on like what purpose and what it is.
We wanted to make an open source digital like free textbook that could be also appealing to the general audience. So we also don't like how like in a textbook there's like the one person who always writes about Ecuador, for example, right? There's just one author whose work is listed in like 3 different world music textbooks. And so we wanted to make sure that it's more modular. So we could have 20 articles on gamelan because there's all sorts of different things to talk about gamelan. We don't want one definitive general article on anything. Um, we want to make it where people can like kind of build their own course and build their own textbook and find a way to like write things in shorter chapters and have questions and kind of link things. So somebody could have a Latin American class using this platform. Somebody could have like looking at nationalism and then pick from different examples. But um, it's still newish, and the payment system has been really slow. So I'm trying to work through that because I feel like 80% of my job has just been tracking down payments, and there haven't been that many. So um, there are a lot of people in offices who know me. Like I'm notorious now because I'm trying to get these people paid, and so that's fun.
It's a great resource. It's a beautiful site. I can't wait to like jump into it. It's really like well thought out, well planned, um, very very well done. That's awesome. Amongst the million other things that you're doing,
Thanks. Well,
yeah.
definitely, Christina and Chris have been doing a ton of work on the like what you see side for sure. They're handling a lot of the stuff while I fight for the payments, and it's nice to get involved in projects you really believe in and that you really value. So and that are fun.
It seems like a lot of the things that you advocate for, teach. This is a perfect example. Your instrument making class is a perfect example. Are things that you wish you would have had when you were coming up. Um, can you- is am I off on that, or do you like it's like a lot of the things that you are like instilling in students is seems like stuff that wasn't around, like wasn't here, so I built it.
Yeah, I think, there are moments. I'm the type of person where like I'll take notes. I have like little files or like notebooks where like if I have ideas, I'll write them down. Um, and as I'm going through something, if I hit a lot of roadblocks or if I have whatever inspiration, I think like, oh, that would be cool. And then if I get it to a point where I have the ability to do something, then I think like, well, why not? I mean, I know that there's a certain level of, we all probably like we all basically identify as millennials, right? But like we all feel jaded that like we don't have a lot of influence over things we would really like for, global politics. Like I would love to have free healthcare here and not be bombing civilians anywhere and supporting peace missions everywhere. Like, so obviously we don't all have control over that, but we could put our voices out there and try to do our best. But a lot of the world is like our immediate surroundings are run by the people who show up, who goes to city council meetings, who goes to pick up garbage in the park, who goes to like a faculty meeting and says, you know what, I'll write that curriculum. Like I'm probably the only ethnomusicologist who wrote the performance level jury structure for a program.
Wow.
Because we needed one with NASM. So and I wanted to do it because I wanted to make sure I rewrote the rules and I made sure that mariachi fit into it, and that mariachi is now a model that any world music, like any non like European classical music, could fit into. So if somebody came in after me and taught Filipino music, they could model it off of something very similar. So I do think that a lot of times, if you want to make the world a better place, even if it's just your neighborhood, like you roll up your sleeves, you show up. And so that's sort of what has been my approach whenever I have just enough sleep or caffeine to get me through it. So
It's a way to get through like the kind of like hellscape of like being bombarded of reality, like we only have control over the things that are tactile within your reach, and I think it's just a good way to like good way to live your life. But yeah, thank you. uh it's an important lesson, and thank you for the reminder.
yeah, no problem. It's nice to remind ourselves that there's plenty of beautiful things in the world and in life that, despite all the problems, like I don't know, it can still be exciting to wake up and plan your day.
Hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And music is one of those things.
Yeah. And it gets you through a lot. So,
Yes.
Got me through a lot. That's
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
and I do have to say, like, from performing with the during the pandemic, I almost went into science. I kept thinking at the beginning of the pandemic, like, maybe I should have chosen a different career. Maybe I could have made more of a difference in the world if I had pursued science. Bristol Myers Squibb was trying to like recruit me into the sciences. Like I had a lot of attention from science recruiters all through high school, right? And so um, I thought about it, but then when I got to when it got to be later in the pandemic, there were times when we would perform for people, and when the doctors couldn't save somebody, we were performing at their funerals. And when people had nothing, all they had was music and each other to connect with their lost loved ones. When when you couldn't take a pill for grief, they had the favorite songs of that they shared with somebody to rehumanize each other, and that's what they turned to. And so I had kind of an existential crisis during the really hard parts of the pandemic for a bit, but after a while, I think it showed me and gave me stronger convictions that, like, I'm glad I chose music. I do think that the music degree is worth it to have in every school. um, just to give people the experience to play music at the very least, even if not everybody is paying their bills solely through music making later. Um, and so I feel like it's been so much more meaningful to me to see how important the arts and music are for people when science can't catch up fast enough. And so yeah, I feel like that's been another lesson I learned these few years, and trying to remind myself, like, there's beauty despite all of the trauma we feel like we face on our phones or in person every day. So
That's
Well,
a
go ahead.
no,
Please,
no.
Leo. No, go, Leo.
Oh, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go so hard. I was just, you
Leo.
talking about the pandemic, uh, and I guess I didn't think about it because I was working. It depends on the industry, but like it really, really affected how it kind of like turned academia on its head. Specific for a music department
mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did you navigate that? Because like the big part of just music is just being around other musicians and a teacher and a mentor. Like that's you talking about it just made me realize, like, oh wow, I didn't even think of like how much of an impact that must have had on, even to this day,
Mm-hmm.
probably still affects you guys.
Yeah, I mean, definitely has affected us in terms of enrollment and in terms of I think students having messaging when they're choosing careers that, oh well, musicians were hit hard during the pandemic, so I don't want to do that, right? And why were we hit hard, right? The gig economy, because of the ways that we don't have basic needs met in most of the US. I mean, imagine if we all had universal healthcare and universal even like retirement, like something a little bit better than Social Security, or a lot better than Social Security. I think a lot of us would be talking about this very differently. Um, but I think a lot of students are scared to go into a career that doesn't have the government and doesn't have the state or like government support in ways that um, uh, other fields do. And sadly, the best supported fields are the ones that are supporting making, bombs and military weapons and things that, um, it's hard. I know a lot of our students go off to work for many of those companies and they make far more than me in their first job. But I don't know if I could feel okay with my knowledge and my skills being used to, you know, destroy parts of the world. And um I would say I'm like more of a pacifist. Like I'm humanist. Like I just don't want any like war. Like war is actually one of the worst polluters. And like when we look at carbon emissions, when we look at a lot of the issues we're having, when we look at the extractivism and the you know all the materials used to make those weapons, like what's destroying the world really is war. And we could do so much better with water and everything if we fix those things and found ways to really promote peace above all. But anyways, um, sorry, I'm getting on tangents, but I feel like the getting back
You're
to
right. No, 100%.
yeah, like the music making. I mean, I had just such a different experience. A lot of mariachis did, especially in LA, compared to other musicians. You know, I wasn't sleeping much. I was just gigging nonstop, and I was teaching asynchronous classes. And I had quadruple the number of gigs that I normally do per year from January to March, 2021. After the biggest spikes in cases and deaths in Los Angeles, I had a year's worth of gigs and a year's worth of funerals in those 3 months that are usually the slowest months. And I was so burned out from playing, whereas all of my colleagues and all of the students were like, I didn't get to play music with anybody. I felt so alone. And I was like overwhelmed with being with people and witnessing their grief. And like, I mean, I've given talks at conferences, and I gave like a keynote lecture type of thing at University of New Mexico, and I made everybody cry. And like, I cry when I give those presentations because you think about the songs like Amor Eterno and things that you sing over and over again, and you're like imagining all of those funerals you witnessed and you attended happening. And you know, I lost people to COVID. Like Adrian lost people to COVID. I also lost people and like loved ones who, um, couldn't get a hospital bed for other serious cases because of COVID. And you know, I know of neighbors of my family in Sacramento. They lost 20 family members because of COVID, like all in one full swoop. Can you imagine losing 20 of your family members in like a matter of months? It just devastating, right? And so um, I feel like my experience witnessing and participating in all of that and experiencing it was just so different from most of the faculty who didn't know anybody who died of COVID, you know, and it was especially jarring when I would be like on faculty meetings on Zoom in my car in between funerals, like on Tuesdays, like at Rose Hills or something, and um, sobbing, and I would just have everything muted. I would just log on and check in and like in case I needed to answer anything, but um, that was really difficult to hear people like complaining about like, oh, I'm so upset my concert got canceled, and I'm sitting there thinking like I just played for like 100 people who are grieving, all these people who passed away, and wildly different experiences despite living in the same area, but being from different demographics, it really taught you a lot.
That was the biggest thing I think in the middle of that pandemic was folks were like music was one of them, live concerts, live shows, people were itching to be there's to be in communion with other people. I mean, maybe not you because you were playing like triple the amount of gigs.
Yeah.
But yeah, people miss that. It was such a big deal. Speaking of gigging and mariachi, I just found out about this. Did you hear about this? They call it mariachi gentrification that's going on in like Mazatlan and Puerto
Oh,
Vallarta. There's like basically the places are getting gentrified by like American expats, and people are complaining about like restaurants that have been there for like 40, 50 years that have like mariachi bands, and
yeah.
they're giving them like noise complaints.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
some bullshit.
It's total BS. Yeah. I'm so glad. I love watching the bands, like the Sinaloa bands, especially like walk through and just play in the streets. They're like, screw it. Like, you know, go back to your country then if you don't like it. you know?
I love that. It's the same rhetoric. It's like, oh, if you don't like it here, go back to your country. It's like what are you doing here? You know,
Yeah.
it. I was in Puerto Vallarta last year, and like talking to. I went on a fishing charter, and I was talking to a couple of the guys we were there. That were the captain and the skipper, el capitán and el. I don't know how you say skipper in Spanish, but
The first mate.
I don't even know either.
I don't know. Yeah,
When
look
you
up
look it up.
Gilligan's Island. Uh, it's such a weird.
3 hour tour.
Oh man,
Sorry.
let's not make
I
this a
love that
3 hour
show
tour.
growing up, but
Did you? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't watch a lot of Gilligan's Island.
It was at Nick at Night.
Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. That's the only way I know it. The lyrics are Amazing Grace.
You triggered me with that church song. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
The Lord is here. I mean,
He is with us. Adam.
Yes,
where's
I
he?
am. Here
They're
I am.
such a big part
Always
of
listening.
the economies of like really touristy areas, like are predicated on tourists, right? Or like built off tourists. But at the same time, they're also, you have like people that are like moving there and then changing the culture and the landscape and like, so it's such a weird thing because like some people make their livelihoods off of like these fishing charters and running restaurants, but then also allowing that brings in the gentrification and the like, I can't afford to live in the neighborhood that 4 generations of my family lived in, you know.
Yeah, tourism is like, you try to, it's so lovely to travel, but you try to like figure out like, how can I do this without contributing too much more to the problems. You know, I think it's unfortunate that people like move someplace that's so cultural and they like it, but then they really don't like it and they just want silence and they want everybody to change to whatever cultural norms that are total BS, you know, in most of the world. Like I love living in Pomona and knowing that if I have a mariachi party, my neighbors will come over and not call the cops on me.
Oh, that's the best.
That's one of the reasons why I left Pasadena, because, you know, I loved Pasadena for like walking around and there's cool shops and restaurants, but like I went to one city hall meeting and like, man, I was like, oh, these are the neighbors that complain about the noise, you know, me practicing violin and banging on my door and stuff.
They were beating a horse that was hung up from a tree with a stick.
Right.
As long as it's before midnight. I gotta be up at 5 for work. I'm fine. Before midnight, it's fine. If it's 3 in the morning and you still got a mariachi band going, let them go home and sleep. You should do the same.
The practice for years of like just sleeping through it. Like I'm at the point now where like I can fall asleep on the plane before we even take off, or like you just get used to like the kids who can sleep at the restaurants with the bandas playing.
Yeah,
it's a talent, but they just pass out. They're like
just
like
perpetually
in
tired. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I live in Oregon now, and Oregon's great. It's beautiful, but let me tell you, I grew up in Southern California in Corona. All my friends were Mexican. All the places I used to hang out with, or all the restaurants I used to go to were Mexican. I just miss like Mexicans. We don't have enough Mexicans. There's Mexicans up here, but not as many Mexicans. Every time I go back to Southern California, I'm like,
And I live right on the border of Santa Ana.
Thank you, Adam. I got to go to Vietnam to see that one Mexican, though.
Right.
That's true. There he is.
Oh, yeah.
Right
There's something about Mexican humor, too, that, like, just makes me laugh. Like, now we're going off tangent, but, like, one of the videos I saw was happening in Puerto Vallarta. There was a really smooth jazz. It was all white people hanging out at this really nice resort, and there's just this like a block away. There's people like there's a mariachi band just like ripping as loud as they could, and you can barely hear the little smooth jazz band. It's like, oh, that's fucking great.
All right. I mean, they should have known. Like, why are you going to have the concert on the patio there? Like, it's indoor salon music, so
go indoors. Yeah.
I'm just being bitter because I have a history with a classical guitarist who I shall not name. None of you know. This was from undergrad, but like,
why bring it up? No, I'm sorry.
It's not nobody listens to this podcast. You can say his name.
Even my instrument building class, I joke with the students that hornball sax is total BS because they classify a guitar and a violin in the same category. And I was like, but one's bowed, one's plucked, one's fretted, one's not. And so, and I just say, I'm very clear on that distinction because being a violinist who had an ex who was a classical guitarist, like I have many feelings about it.
Oh.
So, but anyways.
Makes sense.
But hey, you still like the guitars. You still like the guitars.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding. Man, say his name. Don't say his name.
No,
I'm
no,
just
it's
kidding.
okay.
No, we'll keep. Yeah, it's okay.
I'm sure he'll
We'll
never
call
listen
him
to
Billy
this,
for
but
now
still.
Oh, you're so certain. You're so certain.
No, I know he'll never listen to this. Kurt, are you kidding me?
No, you're right. Hey, we have 5 people watching our
Cool.
live stream right now.
Who else is
I mean,
watching? Any other comments or?
There's
It's late, too.
there are many
Yeah.
comments, no questions.
Oh,
A small conversation about the theremin
Nice.
with a user named Fatty McFatFat.
Nice, great
heart-
username, Fatty
A
McFatFat.
heart from
the
Nopoe
best name.
Nopo number 9. Who
Hey.
made,
Nopo number 9?
he's a friend of mine.
Okay.
Shout out, Nopo number 9.
Thank you, Nopo number
Nopo.
9. Braden. And that's really it. And but it's nice to have. I mean, it's a long list, like a lot of comments.
I
Nice.
haven't checked our stats in a long time, but I do remember we had a little stint. Our most listened episode was really big in like Bangladesh. So that's
It
pretty
was
cool.
was it Bangladesh? I thought it was that was like New Delhi or something specifically.
Oh, okay.
It was some well either way, it was very indicative of like a streaming farm. like like Spreaker has a staff of people who just play their shows over and over to get more
Tight.
ad revenue.
Hell yeah.
Oh, no.
I'll take it. Or maybe we're just
Right.
really popular in Southeast Asia.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do you have
Like
sunglasses on, God?
He does.
I can't
I
tell.
do.
He looks like the porn channel on like channel 99 that you got on like cable TV. That's what he looks like.
When we were like 5 years old, just like streaming through the channels.
Oh,
Come
yeah,
on,
we're
the
just
learning image.
The 90s were the best, man.
Yeah.
Those were great.
Pixelated.
With like the
There was-
clicker.
I mean, seatbelts were barely even used, so it's like
Yeah.
You
Drinking out the
guys use
hose.
them
not in the back seats, no. And we used to ride in the trunk of the station wagon all the time.
today?
Yeah.
Oh, let me
That's
tell
what-
you guys about Vietnam.
Yeah.
So we ride on motorbikes.
Yep.
So a
Okay.
baby's child seat is just a wire frame that they put in the front of the motorbike.
Hell yeah.
It's just a wire. You just sit the kid there, wire frame, no seatbelt, no nothing. Just hope and prayers all day long. Just
Oh my
hope and prayers.
That's stressful.
It's so
And that's why
crazy.
you're there, Lord.
Yeah, they need
Yeah,
they
exactly.
need like a traffic spokes. Like we have Smokey the Bear, but they have like a Vietnamese version of that, but for like making sure your baby goes in the back of the bike and not in the front.
Yeah, it's like Timmy
Are there-
the I don't know.
That's when they get older.
Like Bobby the
They
Bond
strap
Me.
them on with a belt.
the Bond Me.
Dude, Bond Me's are so fucking good.
I
You
do
have
like
no
them.
idea.
When I
Omelet
lived near
Bommies.
Elite Sandwiches, that was one of the most exciting like apartments I had.
Oh, Lee,
You
oh, I
live-
love Lee's.
You lived above
Best
one?
coffee
Oh,
ever.
I lived near Lee Sandwiches,
Oh.
the one on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena.
I thought you
Oh,
lived.
yeah.
I thought you lived
It's
above
like
one.
Lake in Colorado. I lived around the corner. But,
I live like right between Santa Ana and Little Saigon. So
Mm,
I got tacos and banh mi everywhere. And I'm like,
nice.
this is heaven. This is so nice.
That's a good mixture,
it's
my
a
man.
great place to be.
I would go as far to say that the Vietnamese perfected the French baguette. I like there's French baguettes are too hard, like they hurt your mouth. Like they're basically assaulting the top of your tongue or your tongue and like the top
They
of
just
your
like
mouth.
shred the top of your mouth.
Not a
there you go.
Vietnamese.
It's a less
baguette.
tasty version of like Captain Crunch or something.
It's because of the steaming, man. They steam all the bread.
Oh yeah,
Right.
they do
Mm.
steam all the bread. That's right.
Oh yeah.
I think you're right,
Less
Liam.
crunch.
Oh man, I hope we have French listeners. They're probably like, oh.
Well, now I'm definitely not listening to them even more.
That's a safe ethnic like stereotype that you can do. Like, I just played a pinball game called Oktoberfest. and they
I
had,
can
like,
do it.
Are you French?
No.
Oh, no.
I'm British. No.
There's like those safe ones that you won't get like in trouble
German.
for, like German. All 100%. Yeah, we're playing this German pinball game called Oktoberfest. I'll send you guys a picture in the chat.
Please
but
do.
It's like the most cartoonish looking German guy, and he was and I was like, man, imagine if this was like I don't know. Never mind.
No, make your joke. You won't offend me.
I was just gonna say, imagine if this was any other ethnicity.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's.
You know what? Like,
I wasn't
honestly,
gonna pick one because then
honestly, it's punching up. Like it's okay. Do it. What can us German heritage say? How do we have the right to be offended?
No, yeah, you guys are.
You know what I mean?
We
Like,
get to make fun of you guys
do
for a
it.
good, I don't know, at least another like 15, 20 years. You guys
Call-
fucked up in the 1940s.
Call me anything you want, because yeah. Well, I knew this kid in school who like made some pretty. He called me like a Hitler lover once.
Oh my god.
Because he was just trying to be a jerk.
Hitler?
Yeah.
He called you Kanye?
Basically.
But like I asked my dad, I was like, did we have family in Germany in the 40s? He's like, no, we came here in the 1830s in Iowa. And I'm like, all right, cool then.
No guilt here.
No guilt.
That's in Argentina too. I get like a lot of I've only had a couple racist comments. I'm big on TikTok. Like I love TikTok, but I've only gotten a couple racist comments, and one of them was on me being a Nazi from Argentina. And I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh yeah, a bunch of like Nazis did expat to Argentina. But I was like, bro, what? Like even the whole country. Yeah, well, no, I mean they all went to South America, Brazil, Guatemala, Argentina. Yeah. There's a town in northern Argentina that my abuela went to on her honeymoon. It's called Bariloche, and it's like their little German town. And I was like, ooh,
we're everywhere.
Yeah, prolific. No,
I actually one of the things I did in Texas was my friends and I were like having a throwback, and we watched Team America, which I actually had never seen, but I watched South Park a lot, and so
Team America is so good.
It was really good, and I love South Park. Like I don't know, I mentioned that to all of you that I wrote a paper about South Park.
We talked about South Park in college. I remember. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, this teacher's awesome,
and it's still like brilliant to me to this day. Like they're so good at like criticizing pop culture like so quickly, and I loved that I had to read this book, like one of the only books about like South Park and The Simpsons, and all these academics were like, the world is ending, like these people are going to rot their brains by watching South Park. And it's like, if you're understanding South Park where you think that they're promoting the ideas of like Cartman, for example, like the joke is on you. Yeah. Right? Like you're not supposed to be laughing with the characters. Like if you're laughing with the characters, like that's like you're the problem, you know? Yeah. But I love that so many things, like that episode about panpipes that I wrote about, you know, like the Peruvian government got really mad about it. Or we, you know, looking at like even how they portray like Kim Jong-il and North Korea, it's like, you know, he got really mad about it too. And it's like, they're making fun of the stereotypes Americans have. And like, you're laughing at how ridiculous the stereotypes and like the average like, ignorance that we have in the US about other parts of the world for all sorts of reasons. And, but yeah, just thinking about like when to punch up or punch down or like all this, like these stereotypes. I think South Park's a good example.
Oh, being able to identify the target of the joke is important to your own media literacy.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought that, like we're talking about, you know, different culture words. Let me get my words together. Bottom line, what I'm saying is Trey Parker and Matt Stone bought the last existing Casa Bonita. Did you hear about this?
Oh, in Colorado. Yeah.
So you know the Casa Bonita episode where Cartman like he tells Butters, he's like, it's the apocalypse, so that he can go to the birthday party at Casa Bonita. And
Butters gets invited to a birthday party, and Cartman doesn't. So he convinces Butters to like crawl into a cave underground.
It's a refrigerator.
And he's in there, and there's like a search party looking for Butters. But then the friend is eventually like, all right, I guess you can come to Casa Bonita, Cartman, and then it's that.
But so Casa Bonita, if you're not familiar, it's like this chain of like like Baja themed Mexican restaurants.
They have like cave divers inside of it.
Indoor cliff divers, and there's like, and so it's like Mexican food, but it's like the Midwest, so it's like really bad. And so Trey Parker and Matt Stone, like it was a huge part of a bunch of Midwesterners' childhoods, especially in like Colorado. And so they bought the last remaining one, and they hired they hired a chef from Mexico. She's like a Michelin star chef, and she's completely rewriting the menu. And they're like, okay, we're going for authenticity, and we're going to pay our workers a living wage so we can eliminate the tips. So it's just really cool. There you go. Yeah, Leo put it in the chat.
Nice.
But like what they're doing with the restaurant is really, really cool.
That's so cool.
And who knew that Matt and Trey were amazing musicians? They're great writers. They go on Book of Mormon.
Oh
and
yeah, that's right.
Bigger, Longer, Uncut. That was all. It was a musical.
That's right.
Right.
I forgot they did the Book of Mormon.
I need to figure out if I can like revisit that paper and then try to get them to like, now that I'm not like a grad student and I will hopefully be full professor soon. You know, at the upper echelons, as Leo said.
You put your pinky up
maybe
too.
Maybe they'll let me interview them and like, but I don't know, because they're just, yeah, that would be cool. So talk about the panpipe episode, the pandemic episode. So
make us seem like we're a lot bigger than we really are. Like, yeah, you should come out. You never heard of just one song? Oh man,
the amount of work we'd have to do to get to that point is ridiculous.
To what point? To where people listen to us?
Yeah, right. No, but like we'd have to have at least a release a month, and then we'd have to have some sort of sponsorship. And like,
you know what? It doesn't matter. It's not quantity; it's quality. We've been doing this podcast for 3 years now, right? We started in the pandemic.
Yeah,
almost 4 years. Yeah. So that's fine. Wow. It's all right. Just let it keep going.
My goal is to get Jack
one of the
Black
guys
on
moved
the
to Vietnam and shit. Like, we're doing this, baby.
I've had 2 kids since the podcast started.
Damn, dude. You've had 2 kids. I'm just kidding. You're a dad? Yeah, you know, it'd be hilarious if you talked to those professors that you wrote the panpipe for the South Park paper, and they're like, you like confronted them about them, and like one of them had like a Cartman tattoo on his chest. And you're like, you were so right this whole time.
Right.
I just didn't want to admit it.
We were so wrong.
Yeah, I should look up that book again. I just remember reading it on the Big Blue Bus and just like being like, man, these people have no sense of humor. Like, how did they come up with these theories about how screwed up millennials are because of South Park when like the joke is on that? So
we're pretty screwed up.
Written by people that are the ones that fucked up society. Like, that's my favorite. Like, millennials are spending too much money on avocado toast. Well, you shouldn't have fucked up the housing market, Karen.
Well, that's because we're killing the diamond industry. Not enough millennials are buying diamonds.
Yeah, because I don't want.
Everything's still about the millennials, but like they're talking about people really of the age of like Gen Z and Gen Alpha and like these other generations. I'm like, you know, most of the millennials were not like the youth that are, you know, doing whatever. Like, I mean, I feel youthful, but like, you know.
But did we not do stupid things at that age too? Did not every generation do dumb things in those ages? And like,
it just it's better documented now.
Oh, God,
like,
you're right.
I mean,
Pope9 says Gen Z are having kids now. You're right, they are.
Boomers at Gen Z's age were, I don't know, ruining the economy. I don't even know what they were doing. But no,
going to Vietnam.
They were doing going to Vietnam. They were doing dumb shit. Yeah.
Not like Adam was going to Vietnam. They were going to Vietnam in a very scary way.
Speaking of Vietnam, super fucking.
I just went to the winning team, man.
That's true. Yeah, we lost that one.
It was a tie.
Was not a tie. We definitely.
Henry Kissinger died.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Speaking of Vietnam, thank God that piece of shit died.
Yeah, won't be missed.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, him and OJ are having a cup of cocoa right now.
I saw this joke.
Second OJ reference of the night, y'all.
Speaking of, I saw this joke says OJ can now finally rest. Nicole Brown's killer is finally dead.
Oh my God, I gotta send you guys this meme.
So
I hope I have it. Hold on.
And
you can't
I saw one headline that said something about like Bronco, you know, because of his car. And I was just like, I like read it quickly and I was like, oh no, that's like, it just, you know, made it look like a Cal Poly connection for a split second.
The Onion had a head.
Can you guys see that one?
Oh my God. Yes. The
Oh.
Onion had a headline that said, OJ was allowed to live because the coffin wouldn't fit.
No.
There's
They're
not
so
enough.
fast. They're
Yeah.
so fast.
OJ's more timely. You can make a lot of good Kissinger jokes, but
It's
I just
true.
feel like OJ's more not even that contemporary.
I mean, he was acquitted.
If I
Legally,
walked
the glove
into the
don't fit.
office, I walked into the office saying that I was on a call and they were talking about OJ, and I was like, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. And then I got fired.
For real?
No, I did not. No.
I worked for the law offices of
Yeah.
what's his face, Kardashian.
Music and civil government. There you go.
Right. The glove don't fit. Yeah. No Po 9 says, now we have the Kardashians.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
That's true. We do have the
God
Kardashians.
damn it.
I did like that. What was that American Crime series they came out with, and they had like the whole like series for the O.J. Simpson trial. It
Was that
came out,
Cuba Gooding Jr.? Did he play OJ?
Yeah, he did.
was it him? Yeah, it was on Netflix. But I remember watching that maybe just before the
It was
pandemic.
a slapstick comedy.
Yeah, it's like
Sorry.
it's a
I'm
feel good
so
one.
that's not.
No, I gotta watch that one.
Feel good rom com.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
There's the David Cross joke where he's like, I just saw Schindler's List and I only laughed about 3 times.
Terrible.
Which David Cross, I don't find him funny all the time, but he's got a couple really good jokes like that. He was funny with Bob when Bob Odenkirk was writing for him.
Oh yeah,
Mr.
when
Show.
they did Mr. Show.
Yeah.
Mr. Show was really funny.
Now he's just like angry dude with a beard.
Yeah, that's about right. Oh my god, that was solid. That's it.
Yeah. What are you listening to before we sign off for the evening? What's
Taste?
your what's on repeat on your
I mean, a lot of, I would say, like Lupita Infante and Nono Boy and the Camperos Sones album that they just came out with. I'm gonna look at my Spotify list. What was I listening to recently? Besides stuff I had to learn for gigs. Cowboy Carter.
so good.
So
good.
I'm really sad you all didn't take World of Music when I had a lecture for because I like beefed up my lecture for like Americana music. And so did I teach you all about Carolina Chocolate Drops?
You did.
You did.
Okay, so I did at least have some of that lecture. Okay,
Heck
so
yeah.
I feel like since the last like 15 years, I've gotten like more into country, probably through mariachi, and then like when I was playing in the old time ensemble that I have the sweater from, we did some of the repertoire, and so like I've been just like so into Afro-Latin music, like
Yeah.
like and so interested in it, and so I was really thrilled when Beyonce's album dropped, and Rhiannon Giddens is like one of my heroes or Shiros, and so and so yeah, I would say like Lupita Infante, Beyonce, and Mariachi Los Camperos, and then the Nono Boy album, their Empire Electric is really good.
Right on.
Damn.
Is that the Rhiannon Giddens? Is she the banjo player on American Carter?
Yeah, on Texas Hold'em, and I think some other tracks too.
Yeah. So how are you familiar with the game Red Dead Redemption?
No,
Whoa.
I've been playing Overcooked lately. That's how I get rid of my stress. Overcooked 2 is the best.
That's a fun one. That's the
Yeah.
one where you're like a little bear and you got to work with a team and make sure the fish doesn't burn and then chop the onion and the tomato. Yeah.
Yeah, Adrian and I just go, yes, chef, because after watching the bear and like,
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a good one.
Nopo 9 says that is such a stressful game. How does that get rid of your stress?
because I can throw stuff and jump off buildings when I'm stressed about it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That and Gang Beasts. I had like a really bad year last year, and Gang Beasts was such a fun Nintendo Switch game because you're just a blobby thing that's supposed to just like tear up shit, and you just like trash the metro station or do whatever, and it's like kind of hard to move gracefully, but it's a hilarious game.
That sounds like my
Gang
everyday
beasts.
life.
Right.
Hard to move gracefully. Just moving
When
through
in
life.
Portland.
Gang bees. Yeah.
Leo's
Antifa.
Leo's referencing. He's talking about Red Dead Redemption, and
Yeah.
that is a far cry from either of the games we were just talking about. But in terms of the music in that game,
Rhiannon
At
Giddens
least-
is the banjo player on that game.
is she really?
She wrote
Oh.
most of the music for that game.
For number
Or
2?
not- for number 2. Yep.
Nice.
Wow. If you like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's on a PC, Xbox, or PlayStation, but it's
Okay.
beautiful, beautiful game storytelling.
All
No
right.
Po 9 recommends the Power Washing Simulator.
Okay, I'll try
Power
that.
washing simulator.
I'm
And
supposed to
tell
be at
me,
Animal Farm or whatever to hang out, or is that
Animal
what it's called?
Crossing.
Animal Crossing. Oh my god,
Animal
Animal
Crossing.
Farm's a book that I liked, but
Get,
Anyway.
yeah. I played this this very Orwellian game
yeah.
to relax about the corruptions of communism and Tsarist Russia. Animal
Anyway.
Farm is a stressful book. Good lord, thank you, No Po 9.
No Po
they
9,
play-
you should listen to Camperos.
yeah, the Son album that they just put out.
Sonam. Okay.
So it's just like Sones. It's a black cover, but yeah, it's a great, it's a great album. It's on
All right.
Smithsonian Folkways. So
Hey, let us know when
Nice.
you play a. Not to go back to video games because I love video games, but let us know when you set up your island on Animal Crossing, and let's connect.
Let's hang
all
out.
right, all right. I'm gonna buy that soon. My mother's always like, why don't you get Animal Crossing? So, I'll get it soon. So,
Oh,
Your
hey,
mom is
I wanted to
game shaming you.
mention-
She's game shaming you.
yeah. So
Noob. Thanks, Mom.
when my parents got us Nintendo, I was like 5, right? But I remember they all like sent us to bed early because it was Christmas or like Christmas break. And then after they sent us to bed, then all the adults were trying to play Nintendo, like my aunt and uncle and my parents, and we are all like, oh, like why did they send us? But I was like the kid who, when I was 6, I beat Mario, and I would beat the game before Luigi got to play. I was really obsessed with old school Nintendo. But
Dang.
up until like
Oh.
Zelda Ocarina of Time, and after that with college, I have not kept up. Like I tried playing Cuphead because one of my senior project students did a project on the music for Cuphead.
Oh, it's so it's like 19.
That game is so fucking stressful.
Oh,
I just lose it. I was like, Adrian, I can't play it. Like it's so hard. So,
Yeah,
it's like Charleston 1930s jazzy, like Django Reinhardt music,
Mhm.
right?
mhm.
Yeah, that game is
yeah.
I watched a documentary. The creators of that game intentionally made that game like as hard as they could because they were like, games are too easy now, so we're gonna make them really hard. This game really hard.
Has he not played the Dark Souls franchise? Or I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. Are you not familiar?
No, I am. I
That was mean.
that was.
Donkey Kong Country has the best video game music, says
Yes.
NoPo9. Yeah.
That the
Yeah, that's
water
all
level,
percussion.
the water
That's-
level in the Donkey Kong Country, that
Mm.
makes me feel feels like you're at the. Do you remember in Taco Bell in the 90s they had that thing where you drop the quarter in the water and you try to land it on that thing?
Yeah.
I feel like the music in the water level of the Donkey Kong Country is what it feels like to be the quarter falling through that thing. Taco Bell in the 90s. Good night,
what,
everyone. I'm just gonna-
you know what game I just started playing because it showed up on like the NES system, like you subscribe to whatever. I don't even know what I'm subscribing to. I'm paid for something so I can play NES and Super NES, but
Yes.
it's like $8 or whatever. But Snake Rattle and Roll. When I was a kid, I played that game and I played Bubble Bobble.
Oh, there you go.
Bubble
Bubble Bobble.
It goes da 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 da. It's just a shake, rattle, and roll song. But you're these like little snakes, and you have to eat like badminton type of ball things and grow a tail and like weigh enough to open the portal. But it was one of the first 3D games, and I got it for Christmas like when I was a kid, like years ago.
I'm looking
So
at it. That looks like fun.
it's a lot of fun. It's a little hard though, but I could beat that game as a little kid, and just rock it. So I miss when I had that type of focus to just beat games like that and just lose over and over and over again. Now I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna play Overcooked now.
Time to go through a stress test.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're watching The Bear, you're like inspired to do that type of stuff. That show, top tier. I put it up there with Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
It's so good.
But I loved Better Call Saul.
It's not even
but
done
only
yet.
after Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
It's funny.
I need to watch Better Call Saul.
It's
Oh,
funny watching Better Call Saul after I did all my paralegal stuff because I'm like, he does so much illegal shit, like more than is stated in the show. I'm like, this is
Oh,
wild.
Kurt. I call Kurt for legal advice. I work for
No,
the
you
I work
didn't.
for the city.
No, you didn't.
I don't. Well, no. He doesn't
didn't give you
he
legal
doesn't give me legal
advice. I'm
advice.
not
He
an
doesn't.
attorney.
He hold on. Let me tell you. I'll call Kurt. I'll be like, hey man, I need to talk about. We had a PRO situation because we wanted to play music at a certain event, and I was like, I'm not sure if we have contracts with the BMI, ASCAP, yada yada. So we had a phone call. Kurt starts and he knows when I'm calling him for this shit. He'll be like, he'll pick up the phone. He won't even say hi, Leandro. He'll be like, just to let you know, I am not a legal attorney. This is not legal advice. You cannot take this as legal advice. And then when I go in my meetings, I'm like, yeah, my lawyer friend told me we can't.
See, I
Leave
feel
it
like
in.
if I was starting my degree again and I decided I wanted to stay in music, I would still lean towards ethnomusicology, but like maybe I wish that I could convince MIS students to take like law and some of these things more seriously, because we need far more people in these positions with laws arguing cases about like music, about rights, especially thinking about how like the copyright system favors some types of music and some types of musicians and not others. And so, yeah, I feel like that's a whole area that our department doesn't really talk about.
Well, we don't.
would.
They don't really have
Well,
not the experience. Robert Teagarden did a great job. Sorry, go ahead. So go ahead, God.
God, yeah.
So God has a suggestion. Maybe we should put salaries of all the top paid people in each major, and then that way, you could just put lawyer right on top right there, so all the students know. All right, I want to go for that one right there.
Yeah. Adam
Biggest
reminds me of a
numbers.
cult leader right now. He's got glasses. He's in Vietnam. He's
We
very
call him
grainy,
God.
very pixelated. Call him God.
Dr.
If
Vallejo.
you see me fully, you'll go blind. That's that's why.
Like
Thank you for saving us. We took a careers in music class with you. It was my
Yeah.
second semester there. And one of the people who spoke was one of Disney's attorneys.
Right. That was a connection with Dr. Miller, Michael Miller.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, because he was like, oh, he's coming into town. He can come talk. And so Michael Miller has always been really supportive of me, and because I covered a couple classes that he's also taught. So I could dig up his name, but he actually did a Zoom session for students this year in careers as well. Yeah.
That's so when I was going into the paralegal stuff, he kept popping up in my mind, like because I told you before the show recorded just this what we were dealing with, and I was like, well, maybe I should go into the law, because I had been doing intellectual property stuff in the music industry, and so that's kind of the focus, which is why I appreciate when Leo calls me with these questions, because it makes me do my legal research, and I'm like, I'm not your lawyer friend. But
I think that, and also somebody who can do taxes for gigging musicians, because everybody needs somebody who knows what to do, right? And I figured out a little bit how to do like my own 1099s, and so I can deal with my gigs on one side and my my W-2s and everything on the other side. And I'm a big spreadsheet person, so like I'm just hyper organized and like literally Ned Flanders style. If granted, I'm filing my taxes like Sunday, but I could have filed them on January 1st because I have all my stuff together, but then you have to wait for your W-2s to get, or whatever, your stuff to get sent.
Yeah.
But that's a career too that I think is far underserved, and everybody's always desperate to find somebody who knows somebody who can answer their questions. And if you had like a really easy like 10-minute consultation, like cheap enough fee to be like, yeah, let me help you through whatever. Like
Yeah.
that could be a lot of side gigs on top of like offering to do people's taxes. So
Yeah.
when I
That's
fantasize about leaving academia, that's one of my.
so we need legal and contract experts and music focused CPAs.
Yeah.
That's actually, there's a need, and look at that. We could fill it. So Fatty McFat says, this is a great comment, but he says, Fatty McFat, he says, students should be paid. Students should have the power to create new majors and career paths. I think those are two different suggestions, and they may be worth exploring. But yeah, like, I think that's the feedback that the departments should look at. Like, Leo and Adam, I don't know if you participated in the feedback questionnaire about a year ago for Cal Poly Pomona, but like,
I loved that feedback questionnaire.
it was like a whole Zoom session. It was great.
Yeah.
But like, that should be the type of thing, like, okay, let's identify the needs that are out there today in order for the department to stay relevant, for universities to stay relevant in these types of areas of entertainment, I guess.
So, I guess
yeah.
like maybe I'm seeing it from a different perspective, but I feel like so I agree. I'm just thinking like administratively, like where are we prevented from doing that, right? And so some of it is because of the way that programs are accredited. So because we have the NASM accreditation, we have to require X numbers of credits, and there's all these different ways we have to count up the units and the credits that students take and the types of classes that we offer. And I think that we could actually support that kind of like build your own major and those types of things more if we had more flexibility for professors to offer new classes when like a topic comes up and they're working in it. So like Dr. Shankler works a lot in with some AI stuff. And then I think like having the flexibility where he or they could have time to like prep that class and create a new class in a timely manner for like a new topic would be great. And to have students be able to take more electives so they could take the classes that interest them when they're offered, and like more interdisciplinary approaches too.
Yeah.
But it's definitely hard because the curriculum process is so, you know, it's so laden with paperwork and review steps, and for good reason, to make sure that you all are also getting certain bases covered based on like pedagogy, like writing intensive and all of this stuff. But
I guess it seems like, no, please, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I was just going to add one extra thought. I was almost done, but there are programs that sadly are being cut. It's places at like Evergreen and oh my God, there's this other place where somebody I know works, but it's real similar where it's like super hippie type of university where like there's no grades and there's all these ways that things are like extra free and creative. Unfortunately, programs like that are being targeted as like not being business enough and not being lucrative enough. But it would be cool to, I wish we could do that. I think there's a lot of red tape on the federal and state levels that make it really difficult, even if faculty want to do it.
Well, it's the price we got to pay to maintain our great capitalistic nation.
I mean, it would be nice to, if there were more faculty who I think had that vision, I think it would be also easier to maybe like build some rotating schedule, but it's a lot of moving parts. If they do another alumni survey, I think finding ways that the university listens to students and alumni because you all have the dollar power, right? Thinking of the capitalist society, we're just cogs in the wheel complaining. So you know, I've been called like spicy and crazy and a bitch in the department, and in the campus.
Those are compliments in 2024.
Right. I'm just gonna get a big like
all those things.
pepper pinata for my office, and
that's
just
what I look for in a partner.
Today
I want her to be spicy,
chaotic,
chaotic, and a bit. We're spicy
or crazy, and you know whatever.
Ooh, dang! Yeah.
That's like, those are like sassy compliments.
Yeah, those are set.
Right.
Like
Like
Mm.
we interviewed the spicy crazy
Get him,
bitch
queen.
Dr. Jessie Vallejo.
It means that you're pressing the right buttons with the people who, are status quo and, white supremacist type of
And
approach.
if they do it again, you say you laugh at South Park jokes for the wrong reason.
Right?
That's it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Fatty McFat says crazy is the best.
Yes, it is. Fat, fat. Yes, it is.
Crazy is radical,
Right?
Not in
Yeah.
the 90s term. Well, yeah, 90s term for radical.
I changed saying crazy to wild, and I just say wild all the time now. And I'll
Mhm.
be at work
You're a
because people will be
wild
like, "Oh
woman."
man, dude, like fucking Tracy just left and she divorced her husband." I'm like, "Dude, that's wild."
That's
How do
bananas.
people react?
No, they're like, "Please stop saying wild." That's what they look at me that way. Yeah,
This
Well,
is a
My
very
wa-
serious
my
I
partner
used to say
subject.
says
wicked all the time, and because in
wicked.
Syracuse you say wicked, but you also that's also a Boston thing. So everybody would be like, "Where are you from?
Wicked.
Boston?" And I'm like, "No,
Wicked
but-
smart.
yeah, right." I love it. I'm
Wicked.
just gonna start saying wicked more. I'll say wild too. So then we'll normalize saying wild.
Wild's good. We find out you're saying wicked all the time because you're promoting the new Ariana Grande movie.
Or the musical, whichever.
Yeah.
I had to start saying like that's bananas because when I was a youth pastor, you have to tone it down. But I've
Mm.
said it at like really inappropriate. Like someone's telling me something like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I struggle
my
with pornography. Like, dude, that's bananas.
No, I had a student be like, yeah, one of my best friends just died in a car accident. It was a head-on collision. Dude was drinking,
Oh.
and like they could barely identify him at the morgue. And I was like shocked, and I just went, I said, "That's
No.
bananas," and I'm like,
Your-
I'm so
your
sorry.
Your
Just
brain was like Beth, like dude went through all the scenarios.
it went, it went through muscle memory. I don't even know. I felt it was like days before they told me. And I'm like,
Oh.
that's bananas. And immediately I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I'm so, I don't know. It's a habit.
You know, it'd be crazy if they were like, they did hit a Chiquita banana truck. That's how they died.
Stop.
That's why they got in the accident.
That's
Because
how they got.
God.
They slipped on a banana peel.
they're
My
playing
friend
Mario,
is Mario Kart. Yeah.
Hot damn.
That is a fun game. That's one of my favorites. We
It's a
used
good
to
one.
have tournaments of Mario Kart
Double dash.
N64 in our dorms,
Oh,
and
64.
so we would drag our like the one person's TV out with the system, and we would all like sit in the hallway at the end of the hallway and just play. And the RA would be like, "The fire marshals won't like that, so like just pick it up before the morning."
We'll race them for it.
Like, go to bed, nerd. We're having
Nerd.
fun. Yeah.
Fire marshal.
Fire Marshal would like it.
I'll just pour water on them. See what they have to say.
Oh my God.
Oh my god, Vietnam, dude.
Vietnam.
Vietnam, baby. Oh,
The fucking Catalina wine mixer.
damn, dude.
Vietnam, baby.
Old timey music club. What is it called? The UCLA
Old time
Old-timey-
string.
Old time string band.
So I recorded
Time
back
is
the
old.
vocals on the album we recorded. We were the UCLA Bluegrass Hoppers. Yeah.
I love that,
It
and I
used
love
to be on
bluegrass.
CD Baby, but I don't know if it's still on there anymore. But my voice was too loud for bluegrass because I overpowered the other women when we did trio stuff. But then in mariachi, I was never loud enough. So that was a fun year of like trying to play between the two different styles and stuff.
Yeah, bluegrass harmonies are hard to do.
They're high too, and like I guess I'm a soprano, but it's high all the time. I just feel like my voice gets tired. So
Bluegrass is not an easy genre either. Yeah, that's tough. I
and
love watching bluegrass.
I was like surprised to learn that what I thought was bluegrass my whole life. In your class, you're like, no, that's not at all bluegrass. That's just folk and finger picking. It has to be like, I remember it was like a, sorry, Fatty McFat points out that someone said hi all the time.
Yeah,
So,
I was thinking. Thank
yeah.
you, Fatty McFat. I was thinking. Yep. Stay high
But
all the
it's-
time.
It's supposed to be like the sad, brooding, high pitched, like very specific definition type
High
of music.
lonesome sound. Yeah.
Yes, high lonesome sound. Thank you. High all the time.
High all the time sound.
I
That's-
didn't last because I was high all the time.
Yeah. Couldn't keep up with them because I was high all the time.
Thank you, Dr. Vallejo.
You gonna start make your own bong class?
No.
No.
I'm asthmatic, so that doesn't work for me.
Do they make those in the
Oh.
library?
Gummies. You can do gummies.
Only if it's
yeah.
an instrument at the same time, right?
Only if it's an instrument.
Yeah.
It's a woodwind.
Right? It'll make the
You
gurgly
got the
sound
holes.
and
In your ethnomusicology studies, did you ever find anything like that, where it was used for imbibing psychedelics, but also for as an instrument? I feel like there has to be.
Kumis.
I mean-
No, wait, that's just the drink.
I'm sure there's some. I did in the communities where I worked, and I guess I still work. Like usually, there was nothing like that. You know, in Quechua communities, like you might have a lot of like drinking of like chicha or like corn beer. You know, sometimes liquor, a lot of times like soda, Coca-Cola as well. But not really any other drugs like that. And in with the Mohawk teachers I was working with, and working in like elementary school classrooms, that was like very, very G-rated. So I did not choose like the party music and the field work where like you might do Molly or ecstasy or anything like that. Like, none of that. So
No peyote.
no, I did try the tea once, just a tiny bit. But I didn't overdo it too much because I with my seizures and like the medications
okay.
I'm on, I'm like,
Oh yeah.
let's not.
You just
test
cut
this.
every joke I was gonna make off at the knees. I'm like, okay, no, I'm done.
Good.
It's okay. I mean, I like Beavis and Butthead too, and that one episode where they're like crawling across the desert on peyote.
That's the movie. Isn't that the
this
movie? David Letterman plays the dad.
Speaking of psychedelics, I had a friend give this to me for my birthday, and I thought
Okay.
it was just regular chocolate.
It's magic
cool.
Belgian chocolate.
Is
It's
it like
polka
Wow.
dot.
I've
It's,
had those like magic
It's open.
my God.
Ooh,
cinnamon French toast?
supplement.
It is it's psilocybin. It is magic mushrooms.
Oh wow!
How is it?
I haven't had it yet, but we were at the
Oh.
pinball arcade, and I was like, "Babe, I thought this was like a chocolate that she really wanted to try." So I started to open it, and my drummer was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! Read the back." And then I looked at it. I was like, "Oh, thank God I didn't eat that entire," because I was about to just mow down on it.
Yeah.
But
I
I
think
was saving this.
the only time I did an edible where it affected me, and actually it was like 16 hours. I did not know the right dosage. I watched Casa de mi Padre, and then all of a sudden
Oh,
I was like,
Classic.
nice.
oh, this is how you tell what a stoner movie is, like, because
Yeah.
I first but that was a good time. And then Adrian's mom saw us like finishing the movie, and we're like,
I dropped it. I took an
So you
edible.
watched for 8 hours, huh?
it was like 16 hours. I just remember watching the sun set for like several hours. And
Yeah.
I'm terrified to do more edibles after that because that knocks me out.
Oh, so that's the fun part. Like, so you gotta dose it right, like, because sometimes edibles will make you like it feels like God is punishing you like the entire time. Like,
Stop it, Adam. Stop it.
What'd I do? I didn't
Stop
do
it's
punching
anything.
it's very oppressed, but the times that you dose it right, it's great. But
Yeah.
like on the other side of it, there was a time I took an edible. I was at a music festival, and this girl I was with, she like took an edible out, and I just popped it in my mouth. She gave it to me, and then she went in her purse to look for something else, and I popped it in my mouth, and she like looks up from like going through her purse, and
no.
she's like, "Where's the edible?" And I was like, "I ate it." She was like, "Oh no, that was for like all of us." And I was like, "Oh man, I was high for like a day."
Yeah.
Oh,
But
oops.
at the end of it, though, when I came out the other side, and I was like, "What?" I was lost. I couldn't get back to my tent. I didn't know where I was. At the end of it, like when I was like, when you're that high too, and Dr. Vallejo, you probably were like this. You were like, oh, I guess this is just how I'm gonna be now. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
this is how I'm gonna be the rest of my life. I better get
Right.
used to this.
I'm gonna lay
Um,
here and watch the sunset, and am I still alive? Like it's
Yep.
basically your
Yeah.
inner dialogue.
I stuck in here forever.
when you
Right.
come out of it, you are so grateful. You're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I survived. And like, what did you do? Just lay on your couch for fucking 8 hours? Like,
I watched Casa de mi Padre, and then I went upstairs and laid down and watched the sunset, and I don't even remember.
yeah.
You had a very lovely experience.
Yeah,
Like,
that sounds like a great night.
you were in no
honestly.
danger.
Yeah.
I highly recommend watching Casa de mi Padre sober and stoned. Let's just say
I've
that.
only seen it
All
sober.
right.
That's the Will Ferrell movie, right?
Yeah. And he doesn't speak Spanish, but he's like speaking the Spanish lines, so like he memorized them. But when the Virgin Mary is like flashing, like that scene, I felt like I lived in that scene for like a year because it was just, you know,
That sex scene must have taken forever
I don't remember.
with the dummy. Oh, why would you? The Fatty McFat says, "Masters in holistic music therapy and ceremonial psychedelics much? Call me doctor." Hey, Fatty McFat, do we
I
know
like
you?
you, Fatty McFat.
Do we know you in real
Right.
life?
I don't know, but I really
Yeah,
like.
he's
this
one of my
person.
buddies.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it one of your friends?
Yeah, he's from junior high, one of my best buddies.
Nice.
Aw,
All right, cool.
Fatty McFat's dope.
I'm
You're
glad
dope,
that
Fatty Fat.
some people heard this part of the conversation because I feel like after the fact, I don't know if people are going to listen for all 2 hours and then like,
They do.
yeah,
We have 4 viewers right now.
nice.
But
This
I'll
might
post
be
it.
this might be a couple episodes. We might be able to get one.
I'm gonna break it
two,
up, probably
maybe
into 2
3
or 3
episodes out of it. Yeah.
Well, we right now I have the session at 2 hours and 24 minutes, and then there was an additional like 15 minutes before that I had to stop because of technical issues because of the sharks in Vietnam.
The sharks in
It's
Vietnam.
my godly beauty that didn't allow the camera to pick up.
The camera couldn't do it.
everything, you know? No,
That's right.
couldn't do it.
That's right. Foiled again. We can only imagine how beautiful you are. I can only imagine. No, sorry.
Adam, every time I talk to you, I want to move to Southeast Asia. I want to move to the Philippines
Dude.
now.
I have a second bedroom right there calling your name.
Oh, nice.
Mm,
You
I
don't get
could
to
do
bring
that.
any of your stuff though.
Yeah, none of my stuff, my cats or my wife. It's just me and Adam now. No.
Yeah.
I
Bring me
might
down.
move to the Philippines.
Just one song. we're now.
Just
we're
one
now.
song.
You can bring all your
Timing is
instruments.
Oh no.
It is a brutal flight.
24 hours.
We're at 12:30.
All right,
Folks,
shall
I
we
need
call
to
it?
say goodnight. Dr. Vallejo, thank you so much for being on our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I hope we covered the burning questions everybody had about academia, and talking about South Park, Nintendo.
It was
Games and
exactly
Bundles.
what we dreamed.
Yes.
Even better.
We've
Everything
been
and
wanting
more.
to just have an in-depth conversation about it for a long time, and so
Yes.
thank you for
With you
accommodating.
specifically, we really love you and
Mhm.
appreciate
Oh,
you.
thank you.
And we talk about you all the time. You're so inspiring and you're doing such great work. And I can only imagine we were the first class you had, all the other students' lives that you've been changing in the last 8 years since we were able to have you as a teacher. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Fatty
Really
McFat
appreciate it.
says, "Thank you, doctor," and he agrees. Yeah, we love you.
Oh, thank you.
And
I mean-
NoPo9 texted me. He's really enjoying the show.
Okay, awesome. It definitely like that first class and like those first few years, I feel like they always stick with you, right? Because you're
Mhm.
constantly reflecting and then it was just fun being kind of like similar ages, similar sense of humor, and just like having a blast, and nobody was worried about what was on the test. It was just like, here's this other cool shit to talk about. And so I really have enjoyed seeing all the cool things that you all are doing in music and not in music, and because this is how life pans out. A lot of times it's nice to have different chapters, and it's really wonderful to see what you're all doing, and that thanks for inviting me to just, I don't know, chat about silly things and serious things late at night.
Anytime.
So
Anytime. If you want to be an unpaid consultant for the show,
sure.
And we'll
Getting your
submit
PhD
in.
and getting a tenure track job, it's like basically saying you'll be an unpaid consultant.
there you go.
Ah.
You're already good at
Interesting.
it.
Yeah.
So
And so
good.
Animal
So many years of
Crossing and
experience.
Overcooked soon. So
Okay.
but,
Well, this has been a great episode. This is going to be fun to edit. Give me a couple weeks.
Okay.
I'll probably chop it up and keep working. This is the first one where we'll actually have the video posted. So
Oh, nice.
we'll be on YouTube, on our YouTube. That's the only one. What else we got?
Can you
Clips?
send me the YouTube link to our
The
channel?
YouTube.
Yes.
I can't wait to see what Adam looks like on the YouTube.
He looks exactly as you see him.
Just-
Blurred. I look like my emotion faded.
You do. You do.
Damn, Adam.
Oh, check out Casa de mi Padre then.
Casa
Casa de
de
mi
mi
Padre.
and
Oh yeah. We'll
Los
plug
Cam-
the
Los
10-year-old Will
Camperos.
Ferrell movie.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you want to plug?
Oh, what
Your
do I call it?
website.
Oh yeah, worldmusictextbook.org.
Got that one. Worldmusictextbook.org.
I guess Lupita's recent album, the Camperos recent album, and then Nono Boy recent album, their recent album, and they're based near you all.
Except for me.
Oh right.
That's true.
Well, let's see, because Nono Boy's up in Portland. That's where their hometown is now.
They are?
Yeah, but they're on tour right now. I think they're in Minnesota this week, and they're going to be at UCLA on May 2nd. So I'll be at that concert.
Oh my god. Should I get them for El Tigre?
Oh yeah, they're amazing.
Ooh.
How do you spell it?
So
ALTIGRE.
So Nono Boy. If you look up, I think it's nonoboysongwriter.com is his main site.
Okay. Yeah.
That's Dr. Julian Saporiti, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, boy. Okay.
And then
So do the
Lupita
mariachis
Infante's,
have-
Mariachi Los Camperos. They have like a Sones album on Spot and Smithsonian that just came out.
Nice.
Sones de Mariachi, and then Lupita Infante's recent album is it's like a classic, like throwback. Lupita, what's it? Amor como en las películas de antes. So love like in the, like in the old films, basically.
Oh, nice. Sweet. Saved. Dude,
All right.
I'm gonna ask John. Do you remember John Lades?
Yes.
He's our talent buyer for El Tigre. I work with him.
What? So he
We still
moved
got
up
to
to
interview
Toronto?
him.
No, I bring him up here every year.
Oh, okay.
So in the city was like, hey, we want to put a Latino music festival on, and I was like, well, I'm gonna put like a legit one on, and I started working with John. But yeah, he comes up every year.
Nice.
He had a talent. His agency was called Cielo. I think he still does stuff with it, but he basically got his roster bought by not Epidemic Sounds. Epidemic.
That's awesome.
Epic Sounds. But yeah, he helps us out with talent buying, and he runs the stage, and he's still doing his thing.
Yeah.
But I'll mention No Boy to him.
Yeah. He's great. And he does he puts a lot of his research into songs rather than articles, because he's like, people are excited if like 3 people read your dissertation or like a bunch of people read your articles. But like you could be at a concert with like hundreds of people and they're all jamming to your songs about, your research basically. So
That's tight.
I try to use his work and the Carolina Chocolate Drops as an example to students of like, you can do serious research and then find ways, like creative ways to express it and to share it, writing is great. Like I love writing my articles, but like, I love listening to these albums too and learning more. So yeah, highly
Fascinating.
recommend it. So
Well,
but,
thanks for joining us on Just One Song, and thank you for the music recommendations.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, thanks so much.
Signing off.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have
Enjoyed
any gigs coming up?
Gigs. Well, I'll give a cameo appearance on May 2nd with Nono Boy at UCLA at the Fowler Museum. The mariachi class is performing on April 30th. and I don't have any other major events, like public events booked, just so far like backyard parties and things like that. But
The best.
We'll crash them.
Awesome.
All three of us. I'll book your flight, Adam.
Yeah, one's in
right.
Baldwin Park tomorrow, 6:30 to 8:30. So
Oh,
I won't
party.
crash that one.
That sounds so much fun.
I could.
It will be good food.
yeah,
That's true. I'll be there.
But
sounds good.
I'll find it. I'll use follow my nose. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, and good night to our wide audience too, and good afternoon, good morning to God. over
Good morning, Vietnam.
Good.
there. See, the current students wouldn't get these jokes either, so I feel like
Yeah.
not at all.
you know,
They'd be
Generate
It's
like,
okay.
They'd be like, "Ew, what is that?
What's
Right.
Vietnam?
she's
Yeah,
so
What's
nerdy.
up, Robin Williams?
Who's Henry
Right.
Kissinger? Is he on TikTok?
How many views?
I'm
does
on
he have?
TikTok.
Drink apple
on
juice
TikTok.
because OJ will kill you.
Mm,
Sorry.
Third
Sorry.
OJ, fourth OJ joke
Was
of
the
the
last
night.
one.
Hey,
Hey.
on that. Hey,
On
I'm gonna
that
have water
note,
by rosé all day, Waterloo.
they said water lube, water-based lube. Alright,
No.
it's my
No, please
water-based
edit that.
lube. Yeah,
That's
no,
our
leave that
other-
in.
that's our other podcast.
No, that's our other sponsor. I would love to have a.
It's
Just
probably
one
pretty
song.
lucrative too. So
Yeah,
Right?
especially as you get older. No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Ay, ay, ay.
Please edit.
Education. We're learning.
Hey,
Unless this is going to be a blooper, I don't know.
a blooper, water-based lube. A blooper.
There are no
A blooper
bloopers
is like
here.
a
A
blooper's
blooper.
cute. Yeah, a little blooper, little blooper.
Make it happen, Lord. It says
Blooper.
Fatty
I hardly
McFat.
even know her. Okay, so yeah.
Love our
It's getting late
show.
over here on the West Coast. Apparently.
Yeah, I'm
Reminds me
surprised
of
that
class.
the ethics police haven't shut Adam down from this in Vietnam.
He's not saying it.
Oh, that's right.
And he's God.
Yeah, God can say whatever. he wants.
exactly.
God knows all. Just won't
God.
tell you. All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
night.
Thank you.
This
is just
Good night,
one song.
listeners.
Good night.
Good night.